Where shadows claim the walls, there's something unsettling about the spaces we call home. Rooms that should cradle comfort sometimes hide secrets. Walls can remember, ceilings can whisper, and floors can shiver under footsteps that belong to no living soul. Nevada, the land of neon lights and desert heat, is home to glittering casinos, bustling cities, and apartments where the living dare not linger. Some units sit empty for decades, their doors padlocked, their windows shuttered. Why? Because the souls that linger here aren't asking politely to stay. They demand it. Tonight, we will unlock the doors to the 25 most haunted apartments in Nevada that nobody wants to rent. Prepare yourself for whispers in the hallway, shadows in the corner of your eye, and a chill that no heater can chase away. The Mispa apartments in Tonopah, Nevada, have long carried an air of mystery and unease. Built in 1905, this aged building sits in the shadow of the famous Mispa Hotel. Its brick exterior, weathered by decades of desert wind and harsh sun. At first glance, the apartments seem unremarkable rows of windows, narrow hallways, and the creak of wooden floors. Yet residents and visitors alike report experiences that suggest the building is anything but ordinary. Those who have lived here describe the sensation of being watched, sudden cold drafts in empty rooms, and strange, almost imperceptible sounds that drift through the hallways late at night. Among the most common reports is the sound of old-time music. From somewhere deep within the apartments, melodies of a piano or faint, distant violin fill the air. It is often classical or ragtime, music that seems too refined and old-fashioned to belong to any current resident. Tenants describe the music as haunting, beautiful, yet tinged with a subtle sadness, as if it carries the weight of memories from a time long past. Sometimes, the music begins softly, almost imperceptibly, only to grow louder, echoing along the hallways before abruptly stopping without explanation. Attempts to trace the source always fail. The instruments themselves are nowhere to be found, leaving the listener with only the lingering resonance of the spectral notes. The Mispa apartments are also known for ghostly laughter. Tenants report hearing the faint echoes of laughter drifting down the corridors, sometimes playful, sometimes unnervingly sinister. It seems to follow those who are alone, fading when others approach or when the occupant turns to look. Some have described it as childlike, mischievous, while others hear a more mature, refined tone, as though a social gathering from the early 1900s is repeating itself behind the walls. Doors slam without cause, sometimes violently, startling residents in the dead of night. Lights flicker inexplicably, and shadows move in the corners of vision, vanishing the moment anyone tries to confirm their presence. One of the most enduring stories from the Mispa apartments involves a woman in a long, dusty dress. A tenant reported seeing her appear nightly at a window, her pale face pressed close to the glass, as if staring at someone inside. She never speaks or moves beyond standing silently in the dim light. When approached, she disappears instantly, leaving only an empty window and a lingering chill in the room. Her clothing is described as outdated, from the early 1900s, and her presence is accompanied by a faint, musty scent, reminiscent of old perfume, mixed with the dryness of desert air. Many who have glimpsed her report, feeling an overwhelming sense of sorrow or longing, as though the woman herself is trapped, unable to leave the building, or perhaps unwilling to rest. Other tenants report inexplicable phenomena throughout the apartments. Items disappear from tables or dressers, only to reappear in completely different locations. Mirrors sometimes reflect figures that are not present in the room. Footsteps echo through empty hallways, sometimes slow and deliberate, other times hurried and panicked. Some residents have felt sudden touches on their shoulders or the brushing of unseen hands as they walk from one room to another. These experiences, though subtle at first, often grow more intense for those who linger in the building after dusk, leading some to avoid the upper floors entirely. Local lore suggests that the Mispa apartments share a connection with the Mispa Hotel, a building famed for its own paranormal history. The hotel has long been a hub for ghost sightings, from spectral guests to phantom staff. It is possible that the energies of the hotel seep into the neighboring apartments, carrying with them echoes of past lives and forgotten tragedies. Stories circulate of the apartments once housing families who suffered untimely deaths, or residents who vanished without explanation, their spirits remaining behind to wander the hallways they once called home. Despite these eerie occurrences, the Mespa apartments remain inhabited. Some tenants embrace the paranormal nature of their home, recounting stories to visitors and even documenting experiences late at night. Others simply endure the strange events, locking doors and avoiding the areas where phenomena are most frequent. Whether one believes in spirits or not, the cumulative stories paint a picture of a building where the past refuses to remain quiet, where every creaking floorboard and faint echo tells of lives long gone but not forgotten. The combination of music, laughter, mysterious figures, and unexplained movements gives the Mespa apartments a unique atmosphere. Unlike haunted buildings that evoke terror through sudden scares or violent activity, this apartment complex exudes a quieter, more persistent form of haunting. The presence is constant but subtle, a reminder that history lives within its walls, and that those who occupied the building in its earliest days may still linger, unwilling to leave entirely. Ultimately, the Mespa apartments are a place where time feels fluid. The echoes of the past intertwine with the present, creating an environment in which ordinary life and the paranormal coexist in uneasy harmony. Residents continue to tell their stories, each adding to the layered history of the building, from the haunting strains of music to the solitary figure at the window. The Mespa apartments remain a testament to the unseen and the unexplained, a living museum of ghostly encounters in the heart of Tonopah. The Mespa apartments in Tonopah, Nevada, have long carried an air of mystery and unease. Built in 1905, this aged building sits in the shadow of the famous Mespa Hotel, its brick exterior weathered by decades of desert wind and harsh sun. At first glance, the apartments seem unremarkable rows of windows, narrow hallways, and the creak of wooden floors. Yet residents and visitors alike report experiences that suggest the building is anything but ordinary. Those who have lived here describe the sensation of being watched, sudden cold drafts in empty rooms, and strange, almost imperceptible sounds that drift through the hallways late at night. Among the most common reports is the sound of old-time music. From somewhere deep within the apartments, melodies of a piano or faint, distant violin fill the air. It is often classical or ragtime music that seems too refined and old-fashioned to belong to any current resident. Tenants describe the music as haunting, beautiful, yet tinged with a subtle sadness, as if it carries the weight of memories from a time long past. Sometimes, the music begins softly, almost imperceptibly, only to grow louder, echoing along the hallways before abruptly stopping without explanation. Attempts to trace the source always fail. The instruments themselves are nowhere to be found, leaving the listener with only the lingering resonance of the spectral notes. The Mespa apartments are also known for ghostly laughter. Tenants report hearing the faint echoes of laughter drifting down the corridors, sometimes playful, sometimes unnervingly sinister. It seems to follow those who are alone, fading when others approach or when the occupant turns to look. Some have described it as childlike, mischievous, while others hear a more mature, refined tone, as though a social gathering from the early 1900s is repeating itself behind the walls. Doors slam without cause, sometimes violently, startling residents in the dead of night. Lights flicker inexplicably, and shadows move in the corners of vision, vanishing the moment anyone tries to confirm their presence. One of the most enduring stories from the Mespa apartments involves a woman in a long, dusty dress. A tenant reported seeing her appear nightly at a window, her pale face pressed close to the glass as if staring at someone inside. She never speaks or moves beyond standing silently in the dim light. When approached, she disappears instantly, leaving only an empty window and a lingering chill in the room. Her clothing is described as outdated, from the early 1900s, and her presence is accompanied by a faint, musty scent, reminiscent of old perfume mixed with the dryness of desert air. Many who have glimpsed her report, feeling an overwhelming sense of sorrow or longing, as though the woman herself is trapped, unable to leave the building or perhaps unwilling to rest. Other tenants report inexplicable phenomena throughout the apartments. Items disappear from tables or dressers, only to reappear in completely different locations. Mirrors sometimes reflect figures that are not present in the room. Footsteps echo through empty hallways, sometimes slow and deliberate, other times hurried and panicked. Some residents have felt sudden touches on their shoulders or the brushing of unseen hands as they walk from one room to another. These experiences, though subtle at first, often grow more intense for those who linger in the building after dusk, leading some to avoid the upper floors entirely. Local lore suggests that the Mispa apartments share a connection with the Mispa Hotel, a building famed for its own paranormal history. The hotel has long been a hub for ghost sightings, from spectral guests to phantom staff. It is possible that the energies of the hotel seep into the neighboring apartments, carrying with them echoes of past lives and forgotten tragedies. Stories circulate of the apartments once housing families who suffered untimely deaths, or residents who vanished without explanation, their spirits remaining behind to wander the hallways they once called home. Despite these eerie occurrences, the Mispa apartments remain inhabited. Some tenants embrace the paranormal nature of their home, recounting stories to visitors and even documenting experiences late at night. Others simply endured the strange events, locking doors and avoiding the areas where phenomena are most frequent. Whether one believes in spirits or not, the cumulative stories paint a picture of a building where the past refuses to remain quiet, where every creaking floorboard and faint echo tells of lives long gone but not forgotten. The combination of music, laughter, mysterious figures, and unexplained movements gives the Mispa apartments a unique atmosphere. Unlike haunted buildings that evoke terror through sudden scares or violent activity, this apartment complex exudes a quieter, more persistent form of haunting. The presence is constant but subtle, a reminder that history lives within its walls and that those who occupied the building in its earliest days may still linger, unwilling to leave entirely. Ultimately, the Mispa apartments are a place where time feels fluid. The echoes of the past intertwine with the present, creating an environment in which ordinary life and the paranormal coexist in uneasy harmony. Residents continue to tell their stories, each adding to the layered history of the building, from the haunting strains of music to the solitary figure at the window. The Mispa apartments remain a testament to the unseen and the unexplained, a living museum of ghostly encounters in the heart of Tonopah. Anyone who steps into the Mispa apartments after dark does so with the understanding that this is more than a building. It is a bridge between eras, a place where spirits walk silently among the living and where the whispers of the past refuse to fade into silence. Those who spend enough time here might catch a glimpse of the woman in the dusty dress, hear the faint strains of music drifting from nowhere, or feel the lingering presence of souls who are bound to the apartments forever. In Tonopah, the Mispa apartments stand as a reminder that some buildings never forget, and some ghosts never rest. The Mispa apartments in Tonopah, Nevada, have long carried an air of mystery and unease. Built in 1905, this aged building sits in the shadow of the famous Mispa Hotel, its brick exterior weathered by decades of desert wind and sun. At first glance, the apartments seem ordinary rows of windows, narrow hallways, and creaking wooden floors, but those who live here know otherwise. Residents report an almost constant feeling of being watched, sudden cold drafts in empty rooms, and strange, nearly imperceptible sounds drifting through the hallways late at night. Perhaps the most commonly reported phenomenon is the sound of old-time music. From somewhere deep within the apartments, melodies of piano or faint violin drift through the air. Often classical or ragtime in style, the music is haunting and beautiful, tinged with a sadness that feels almost tangible. Sometimes it begins softly, only to grow louder and echo along the hallways before stopping abruptly, leaving the listener in a disorienting silence. Attempts to locate the source are always fruitless. The instruments themselves are never found, leaving only the lingering resonance of the spectral notes. Ghostly laughter is another frequent occurrence. Tenants describe faint echoes of laughter drifting down corridors, sometimes playful, sometimes chillingly sinister. It seems to follow those who are alone, fading whenever someone else enters the hallway. Some hear the laughter as childlike and mischievous, while others report a more refined tone, as though remnants of long-past social gatherings repeat themselves in the quiet of night. Doors slam without cause, lights flicker unpredictably, and shadows dart in the corners of vision, vanishing the moment anyone attempts to confirm their presence. One of the most enduring tales involves a woman in a long, dusty dress. A tenant reported seeing her nightly at a window, her pale face pressed close to the glass as though staring inside. She never speaks, and when approached, she vanishes, leaving behind only a lingering chill. Her clothing is outdated, reminiscent of early 1900s fashion, and her presence is often accompanied by the faint scent of old perfume mingled with the desert air. Witnesses report an overwhelming sense of sorrow or longing, as though the woman is trapped or unwilling to rest. Other inexplicable phenomena have been reported throughout the apartments. Items vanish from tables or dressers, only to reappear elsewhere. Mirrors reflect figures that are not present, and footsteps echo through empty hallways, sometimes slow and deliberate, sometimes hurried and panicked. Some residents have felt sudden touches on their shoulders or the brushing of unseen hands as they walk from one room to another. These experiences intensify after dusk, causing some to avoid upper floors entirely. Local lore suggests the Mispa apartments are connected to the Mispa Hotel, a building renowned for its own paranormal activity. Ghosts from the hotel may have drifted into the neighboring apartments, carrying echoes of past lives and forgotten tragedies. Stories circulate of families who suffered untimely deaths or residents who vanished mysteriously, their spirits lingering in the hallways they once inhabited. Despite the eerie occurrences, the apartments remain inhabited. Some tenants embrace the paranormal nature of their home, sharing stories and documenting experiences late at night. Others simply endure the strange events, locking doors and avoiding the areas where phenomena are most frequent. The music, laughter, mysterious figures, and unexplained movements create an atmosphere unlike any other. Unlike haunted buildings known for sudden scares, the Mispa apartments exude a subtle, persistent haunting that reminds residents that history lives in its walls and that those who occupied the building decades ago may still linger. Ultimately, the Mispa apartments are a place where time feels fluid. The echoes of the past intertwine with the present, creating an environment in which ordinary life and the paranormal coexist. Residents continue to recount their experiences, adding layers to the building's ghostly history. From the haunting music to the solitary figure at the window, the Mispa apartments stand as a testament to the unseen and the unexplained, bridge between eras where spirits silently walk among the living, and the whispers of the past refuse to fade into silence. Reno Vista Apartments in Reno, Nevada, is a building steeped in unease and whispers of the past. Constructed in the mid-20th century, it stands over grounds that locals insist were once Native American burial sites. The history of the land is subtle, often overlooked by residents and passersby. Yet the stories of restless spirits seem impossible to ignore. Tenants describe a range of strange phenomena: shadowy figures slipping along stairwells, sudden drops in temperature, and chants that echo from nowhere, often heard when the building is otherwise quiet. Those who have lived here speak of a persistent sensation, as if the land beneath the apartments remembers events long buried, and it communicates through subtle, eerie means. The most commonly reported sightings involve shadowy figures in the stairwells. Residents have seen dark forms, fleeting and indistinct, moving silently up and down the steps. These figures rarely linger, vanishing whenever someone attempts to confront them. Some witnesses describe the shapes as vaguely human, while others insist they are amorphous, more like living shadows than corporeal beings. They appear mostly at night, when the hallways are dimly lit and the building's silence amplifies every sound. Tenants report that the figures are accompanied by a feeling of being watched, a sense that unseen eyes are following their every movement. Echoing chants are another frequently cited phenomenon at Reno Vista. Residents have heard low, rhythmic chanting that seems to emanate from empty hallways or stairwells. The language is often indecipherable, sometimes sounding like Native American ceremonial words, other times more abstract, a haunting resonance that fills the space with tension. The chanting often begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, and grows louder before fading abruptly. Many who have heard it describe feeling a compulsion to pause, to listen, as though the voices are trying to impart a message or demand acknowledgement. Attempts to trace the source usually fail, leaving an unsettling ambiguity. The sound is real, yet it seems to have no origin within the building's walls. Perhaps the most disturbing account comes from one family who moved into the apartments several years ago. Their young daughter began speaking to an invisible friend, describing a presence she called the one who remembers the ground. When asked what this unseen companion said, the child repeated chilling words. "The ground remembers." The parents were unnerved, as their daughter seemed both frightened and fascinated by the invisible visitor. They reported that the child's imaginary friend often led her to particular areas of the building, corners of the stairwell, spots near certain windows, and even sections of the basement that were long unused. In each case, those areas coincided with the deepest disturbances reported by other residents. Locations where cold spots, sudden gusts of air, or unexplained sounds were most prevalent. Doors swing open and shut with no apparent cause. Lights flicker unpredictably, and electrical appliances behave erratically. Many residents have felt a brush of air or the sensation of being gently touched by something unseen. These experiences, while often subtle, contribute to a pervasive feeling that the apartments are alive in some inexplicable way, influenced by the memories or energies embedded in the land beneath them. Local lore surrounding Reno Vista suggests that the land has never truly been at rest. Long before the apartments were built, the site was said to be a sacred area where rituals and burials took place for generations. According to some stories, the spirits of those who were buried there were never fully appeased. When construction began, there were warnings from local historians and native elders to respect the land. Yet the apartments were built nonetheless. Some believe this disturbance awakened the lingering spirits, imbuing the building with an energy that reacts to anyone who inhabits it. Despite these unsettling occurrences, life continues within Reno Vista. Some tenants dismiss the stories, attributing the phenomena to imagination or the creaks and groans of an old building. Others embrace the haunted reputation, sharing their experiences with neighbors and documenting events that defy explanation. The apartment's reputation has grown, drawing paranormal enthusiasts and curious visitors, some hoping for an encounter with the shadowy figures or to hear the mysterious chanting firsthand. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences makes Reno Vista Apartments a uniquely haunted location. Unlike buildings where activity is overt and aggressive, the disturbances here are subtle but persistent, weaving into daily life and creating an almost continuous sense of unease. Residents learn to navigate the stairwells carefully, to respect areas that seem particularly charged, and to live with the knowledge that they share the space with presences they cannot see. Reno Vista is also a reminder of the importance of history and memory in haunted places. The land beneath the apartments carries centuries of human presence, energy, and emotion. Whether the phenomena are spiritual, residual, or psychological, the result is the same: an environment where the past refuses to remain buried, where echoes of forgotten lives intersect with the lives of those living above them. Anyone who enters Reno Vista Apartments after dark may see a shadow move in the corner of their eye, hear faint chanting from empty corridors, or feel the lingering presence of spirits connected to the land beneath their feet. The stories told by residents and visitors alike suggest that the apartments are a liminal space, a bridge between the present and the echoes of the past. Here, the memory of those buried long ago continues to manifest, reminding all who dwell within that the ground remembers, and some spirits refuse to rest. Sahara Heights in Las Vegas was once a symbol of luxury and modern living. Built in the 1960s, it attracted wealthy tenants who relished a sleek design, panoramic views, and convenient location. At its height, the building was alive with activity. Jazz music drifting from apartments, laughter echoing down the hallways, and the soft clinking of glasses in evening gatherings. But time and changing fortunes left Sahara Heights largely abandoned, and the once vibrant apartments have taken on a reputation that far eclipses any memories of glamour. Today, those who enter speak of strange occurrences that suggest the building itself remembers its past, and that its residents may not have completely departed, even in its current state. Sahara Heights maintains an air of eerie elegance. The hallways are lined with peeling wallpaper and faded carpeting, yet the faint echoes of past life linger in the architecture. Former tenants recount experiences that defy explanation. Doors lock and unlock on their own, sometimes trapping residents momentarily within rooms. And cold drafts flow through the apartments, even in the sweltering summer heat, brushing against bare skin with a chill that seems unnatural. The air is often tinged with the faint aroma of cigar smoke, drifting through empty corridors where no one has been seen smoking for decades. Those familiar with the building claim that the smell is sharp and distinct, carrying the subtle bitterness of long-extinguished cigars, lingering like a ghostly signature of past occupants. One of the most unsettling stories comes from a tenant who lived in the building during its more sparsely occupied years. One night, while attempting to sleep, they noticed a figure sitting on the edge of their bed. The man appeared older, dressed in a tailored suit that looked appropriate for the 1960s, his posture relaxed as if he had always belonged there. Terrified, the resident reached out, and the figure simply vanished. In the morning, a photograph taken as the tenant documented their apartment revealed a faint outline of the man sitting exactly where they had seen him. There was no logical explanation, no intruder, no reflection, no trick of light. It was as though the photograph had captured a lingering impression of a person who had existed in the apartment long before. Other residents have reported similar experiences. Footsteps echo down hallways where no one walks, and shadows dart along walls in peripheral vision, disappearing whenever directly observed. Mirrors reflect figures that are not present, sometimes showing the vague silhouettes of men in suits or women in dresses from the 1960s. Lights flicker unpredictably, and the sound of a door opening or shutting can be heard from rooms left locked and empty. Some visitors even report hearing faint music, soft jazz or lounge melodies, drifting from one apartment to another, as if the building itself remembers the soirees and gatherings that once filled its halls. Sahara Heights seems to respond to the presence of people in unpredictable ways. Residents have described a sensation of being watched, even in rooms that are otherwise empty, and cold spots appear suddenly, often moving as a person walks through the apartment. Objects sometimes shift position on shelves or tables, as if invisible hands are arranging the space. Some tenants have claimed to hear whispers, unintelligible words that seem meant for no one, yet carry an unmistakable sense of urgency or warning. The cumulative effect of these phenomena is a pervasive tension, an almost palpable presence that reminds anyone entering that the building is not entirely vacant. Local lore surrounding Sahara Heights adds another layer to its haunting. When the building fell into partial abandonment, rumors spread that the spirits of past residents lingered. Some claim that those who died in the apartments during their heyday never truly left, tethered to the space by unfinished business, regret, or attachment to their homes. Others suggest that the energy of the building itself has absorbed the lives of countless tenants, replaying fragments of their daily routines, desires, and fears like residual echoes of memory. Even now, paranormal investigators and curious visitors are drawn to Sahara Heights. Some come hoping to capture photographic evidence, while others seek to feel the building's strange energy firsthand. Reports of shadow figures, unexplained sounds, and fleeting apparitions continue to accumulate, reinforcing the reputation of Sahara Heights as one of Las Vegas's most haunted residential buildings. Those brave enough to explore often recount a tension that grows the longer they stay, as though the building itself is observing, measuring, and perhaps judging each intruder in its domain. Despite its haunting, Sahara Heights retains an undeniable presence and character. The building stands as a testament to time and memory, a structure that houses the invisible as much as it does the visible. Its faded walls, long-forgotten furnishings, and vacant apartments all carry traces of the people who lived there, blending the lines between past and present. In this way, Sahara Heights is more than a building. It is a repository of human experience, where echoes of laughter, sorrow, and ordinary life linger, refusing to fade into silence. For anyone entering Sahara Heights today, the experience is unsettling but compelling. The faint scent of cigars, the cold drafts in summer, the shadowy figures flitting through hallways, and the lingering echoes of music all combine to create an atmosphere that is both eerie and mesmerizing. Whether these phenomena are the result of spirits, residual energy, or something else entirely, the building continues to captivate those who step inside. It is a place where the past is never fully gone, where memory and presence intertwine, and where the boundaries between the living and the dead seem to blur. Silver Sands Apartments in Henderson, Nevada, presents an unusual juxtaposition. From the outside, the complex is immaculate, pristine landscaping, neatly painted walls, and a sense of quiet suburban order. Yet, those who live inside quickly discover that appearances can be deceiving. Behind the immaculate facade, the apartments are host to experiences that defy explanation. Residents have long reported unsettling occurrences that suggest the building is alive with more than the ordinary sounds of pipes, wind, and settling structures. At Silver Sands, the line between the living and the unseen is surprisingly thin. One of the most common complaints from tenants is the sound of furniture moving without cause. In the dead of night, when the building is silent and most residents are asleep, chairs scrape against floors and tables shift as if nudged by invisible hands. The sounds are deliberate and measured, not the chaotic creaks of an aging building. Some describe waking to find chairs slightly rotated, drawers slightly ajar, or items moved just enough to be noticeable. The phenomenon is unsettling not only because of its persistence, but also because no pattern seems to exist. One can predict which apartment will experience the activity or when. Shadowy figures are another frequent sighting at Silver Sands. Residents often see them glide silently across the floor, elongated and dark, moving without the subtle motions of breathing or blinking. These shapes appear most often in peripheral vision, vanishing when directly looked at. Some tenants have reported the shadows passing along walls or through hallways, creating the sensation of being followed without physical presence. Unlike traditional hauntings, these figures rarely interact aggressively with residents, but their silent observation is enough to produce a persistent unease. One of the more chilling experiences was reported by a woman who woke one night to discover her bedroom floor covered in tiny footprints. The prints were arranged deliberately, all pointing toward her bed, as if an unseen entity had walked the length of the room just to arrive at her sleeping form. The footprints were small, childlike, and far too precise to have been accidentally made by pets or furniture. The tenant described feeling a mix of fear and fascination, and no explanation for the footprints was ever found. By morning, the prints had vanished, leaving only the lingering sense that the apartment itself had somehow intruded upon her space. Other tenants have described unusual temperature changes in specific rooms. Cold spots appear suddenly, often accompanied by the sensation of being watched. At times, the air feels thick and heavy, and residents report short bursts of dizziness or unease when passing through particular hallways. Some claim to hear soft murmurs, unintelligible words that echo briefly before disappearing, leaving an impression of intent without clarity. In several cases, electrical appliances behave strangely. Lights flicker without reason. Televisions turn on by themselves, and alarms sound when no one has triggered them. These disturbances are subtle, but they are persistent, forming a backdrop of tension for anyone living at Silver Sands. Local lore surrounding the apartments suggests that the land may have been home to settlements long before the modern complex was built. While the exact history is unclear, some accounts imply that Silver Sands is situated atop a place of lingering energy, an area where human presence, memory, or even grief has accumulated over decades. Whether the activity is residual, spiritual, or psychological, it seems tied to the building itself, manifesting as subtle movements, shadowed forms, and inexplicable sounds. Tenants speak of the apartments with a combination of wariness and awe, understanding that something unseen is present, yet often intangible and impossible to confront. Despite the strange occurrences, Silver Sands remains inhabited. Some residents embrace the eerie phenomena, documenting the movements, sounds, and sightings, sharing stories with friends or recording them for curious visitors. Others attempt to ignore the disturbances, treating them as quirks of an old building or quirks of the imagination. Yet, no one can fully dismiss the cumulative experiences, particularly when the phenomena seem to follow a pattern of timing and location that defies coincidence. The haunting at Silver Sands is not aggressive or violent, but persistent and subtle, creating an atmosphere that is both unnerving and strangely intimate. Shadowy figures, moving furniture, mysterious footprints, and sudden chills blend into a consistent sense that the apartments are aware, watching, and interacting with their residents in ways that cannot be explained. Unlike locations where hauntings are loud or terrifying, the supernatural activity here is quiet, methodical, and deeply personal, leaving residents to wonder who or what moves unseen in their homes. Living at Silver Sands becomes a negotiation with the unseen. Tenants learn to navigate hallways carefully, leave objects undisturbed, and respect the presence that seems embedded within the floors, walls, and corners. For those willing to notice, the building offers glimpses of something beyond ordinary life. Shadows that pass silently, soft scraping sounds in the dark, and the occasional inexplicable print left as a silent message on the floor. In Henderson, Silver Sands Apartments stands as a chilling reminder that appearances can deceive. The exterior's perfection belies the presence that walks its floors at night. Residents may see shadows glide silently across hallways, hear chairs scrape against floors without anyone moving them, or wake to discover tiny footprints pointing toward their beds. The apartments are alive with unseen watchers, a subtle but constant haunting that blends history, memory, and energy into an atmosphere that is impossible to ignore. Fremont Flats in Las Vegas has long held a reputation that belies its unassuming exterior. Nestled near the bustling historic Fremont Street, the apartment complex may appear ordinary during the day. Yet as night falls, it becomes a place steeped in stories of lingering spirits and inexplicable activity. Tenants of Fremont Flats often speak of experiences that go beyond ordinary occurrences. Tales of sounds, shadows, and figures that suggest a building haunted, not by random chance, but by memories and lives long past. One of the most commonly reported phenomena is the sound of piano music. Residents describe hearing soft, deliberate piano notes drifting through the hallways and across the floors of their apartments. The music is always faint, as though played from a distant room, or perhaps from another time entirely. Some claim the style resembles the ragtime and jazz popular in the 1920s, carrying with it an energy both nostalgic and chilling. The piano playing is rarely accompanied by other sounds. No footsteps, no moving furniture, just a steady, ghostly melody that seems to flow from nowhere. Many tenants report lying awake at night, listening to the notes echoing through the building, feeling a strange mixture of calm and unease. Perhaps the most unsettling stories come not from music, but from sightings. A man who lived on the third floor of Fremont Flats recounted weeks of seeing the same figure standing in his doorway. The figure was tall, dressed in clothing reminiscent of the early 20th century, and bore the appearance of a pianist who might have performed in the grand halls of Las Vegas long before modern casinos transformed the city. The man's presence was unnerving. The figure never blinked, never moved, simply stood, staring silently into the apartment, as if observing or waiting. No explanation was ever found, and the tenant swore that no one entered or exited his apartment during these weeks. The figure's unwavering gaze created a sense of being constantly watched, a pressure that made the air feel heavier and the nights longer. Other residents of Fremont Flats have reported additional disturbances. Soft whispers, sometimes indistinct and sometimes seeming like faint reminders of conversation, drift through the hallways. Doors open and close without warning, often in apartments that have been long vacant. Shadows flit across the edges of vision, disappearing whenever someone turns to confront them directly. Cold spots appear suddenly, sending shivers through the rooms. And electrical appliances occasionally malfunction without explanation. The combined effect is subtle yet persistent, creating an environment in which the ordinary and the paranormal coexist in uneasy tension. Many tenants believe that the haunting is tied to the building's proximity to historic Fremont Street. During the 1920s and 1930s, the area was alive with entertainment, nightlife, and the early stirrings of Las Vegas's gambling scene. Performers, musicians, and entertainers filled the streets and venues, bringing with them energy and passion that may have lingered long after their deaths. Locals speculate that some of these spirits, particularly the musician seen playing the piano, never left, continuing their nightly performances in the quiet of the Fremont Flats apartments. The piano music itself seems to carry intention. Some residents claim that it responds to their presence, growing louder or softer depending on whether someone is listening. Others report hearing entire melodies, complete with crescendos and pauses, as if a ghostly performer practices diligently each night. Attempts to record the sounds often fail. Microphones capture only faint static, never the full musical passages that tenants swear they hear with perfect clarity. This selective presence adds to the building's mystique, suggesting an intelligence or awareness behind the phenomena, as if the spirit seeks to be witnessed but remains untouchable. The figure in the doorway has inspired similar reports from other tenants. Several people have described glimpsing an apparition at the edge of their vision, a tall, silent figure dressed in vintage clothing, sometimes standing at apartment thresholds or near windows. The figure never moves aggressively, yet its presence is impossible to ignore. Tenants have described the experience as profoundly unsettling, leaving them with a lingering sensation of being observed, of their routines quietly intruded upon by a presence that does not belong to the modern world. Some residents have embraced the paranormal activity, seeing it as a unique link to the past. They share stories, document unusual occurrences, and take nightly walks through the hallways, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious pianist. Others are more cautious, locking doors, avoiding certain hallways, and trying to maintain a sense of normalcy despite the persistent phenomena. The shared experiences create a community of sorts among tenants, one that revolves around the building's unique blend of history and haunting. Fremont Flats is more than a residential building. It is a vessel for memory, energy, and unresolved presence. The soft piano music, the unwavering figure in the doorway, the flitting shadows, and the unexplained whispers all point to a continuity of life and experience that refuses to fade with time. Visitors and tenants alike are reminded that the building's past lingers, influencing the present in ways both subtle and unmistakable. Carson Court in Carson City has long been regarded as a building with a presence that cannot be ignored. From the outside, it appears unremarkable, a typical apartment complex nestled among the city's older neighborhoods. Its architecture is simple, its landscaping modest, and the hum of normal life surrounds it during the day. Yet as night falls, those who live within its walls experience phenomena that defy explanation. Manifestations that suggest the apartments are not as empty or quiet as they appear. Over the years, Carson Court has developed a reputation among residents and locals alike for being a place where the boundaries between the living and the unseen are perilously thin. One of the most common and unnerving experiences reported by tenants is the sudden appearance of cold spots. Unlike ordinary drafts, these temperature drops occur abruptly, enveloping a room or hallway in an unnatural chill that cannot be explained by air conditioning, weather, or structural flaws. The cold seems to have intention, often manifesting around people, sometimes following them as they move from room to room. Residents describe the sensation as a weight pressing on their skin, a reminder that something invisible occupies the same space. Many report that the chill is accompanied by an uneasy feeling, a sense that the air itself carries a warning. Whispers are another frequent occurrence at Carson Court. Tenants often hear soft murmurs that drift through hallways or seep from empty apartments, carrying words that are sometimes intelligible and sometimes not. The whispers can sound like fragments of conversation, faint pleas, or urgent messages, always fleeting and impossible to capture or respond to. Some residents swear they have heard their own names called in the quiet, the voices both familiar and foreign, echoing as if from just behind the walls. Attempts to record the sounds typically yield silence, leaving only the listener's memory as proof that anything occurred at all. One of the most chilling incidents took place in a small apartment on the second floor. A man woke in the dead of night to a sensation of pressure in his room, the temperature plummeting around him. When he opened his eyes, the room appeared as it had before, yet an unmistakable sense of intrusion hung in the air. Later, when he checked his closet, he discovered the word "leave" scratched repeatedly across the inside of the door. The letters were jagged and deep, as if carved with deliberate force. What terrified him most was that the closet had been locked the previous night, and there was no explanation for how the message had appeared. The incident left him shaken, and the apartment remained charged with an oppressive energy for months afterward. Other residents recount objects moving unexpectedly, doors opening or closing on their own, and faint shadows flitting across rooms when no one is present. Some describe the feeling of being watched, the sense that eyes are following them even in the darkest corners of their homes. Electrical devices sometimes behave strangely, with lights flickering or turning on without explanation, and televisions activating with no one nearby. These experiences, while subtle individually, accumulate to create a pervasive atmosphere of unease that many tenants cannot ignore. Carson Court's haunting appears to be selective, yet persistent. Not every apartment experiences the same phenomena, and some residents report long periods of calm before the disturbances return. The pattern suggests an intelligence behind the activity, a presence that reacts to the living in ways that are both deliberate and inscrutable. Tenants have described feeling as though the building itself is alive, aware of their movements and intrusions, observing silently from its walls and corners. The combination of cold spots, whispers, and sudden manifestations forms a tapestry of haunting that is unique to Carson Court, blending subtlety with unmistakable presence. Local lore surrounding the apartments hints at a deeper history, though much of it remains vague. Some suggest that the site was previously occupied by early settlers or workers who experienced hardship and tragedy, their energies lingering long after their deaths. Others speculate that the building was constructed over areas of emotional or spiritual turbulence, leaving Carson Court attuned to those who enter. Regardless of origin, the experiences reported by residents are consistent, persistent, and often unnerving enough to drive some tenants away entirely. Despite the fear that many feel, Carson Court continues to be occupied. Some residents embrace the unusual activity, treating it as part of the building's character, documenting their experiences or sharing stories with neighbors and friends. Others live cautiously, avoiding certain areas of the building, locking doors, or keeping lights on at night to ward off whatever may linger unseen. Yet even those who try to maintain normalcy cannot ignore the persistent sense that Carson Court watches, listens, and occasionally communicates in ways that defy logic. The whispers, the cold spots, and the mysterious appearance of messages, such as "leave," suggest a presence that is patient and deliberate. It is not a chaotic haunting, but rather one that interacts with the living carefully, ensuring that its presence is known without being overtly violent. The subtlety of the activity adds to the terror, creating an environment where tension is constant and sleep is uneasy. Tenants report that once they feel the building's awareness, it is nearly impossible to forget it, a shadow that follows them even during the day. Carson Court stands as a chilling example of a haunted residential building. Its pristine exterior and unassuming appearance hide a world of unexplained phenomena, from the freezing cold that appears without cause to the whispered messages that slip through the walls. Objects move, shadows shift, and the presence of something unseen creates a constant, lingering sense of unease. Those who live there quickly learn that the building is not empty, and that whatever resides within its walls is patient, intelligent, and insistent. Neon Pines Apartments in Las Vegas stands in stark contrast to the city's dazzling lights and constant energy. From the street, it looks like any other mid-rise apartment complex. Its facade bright, yet unassuming, amid the neon glow of the surrounding casinos and shops. Yet residents know that once the sun sets, Neon Pines becomes something entirely different, a place where shadows seem to move with purpose, and the ordinary rules of reality no longer always apply. Those who live there speak of experiences that are chilling, persistent, and impossible to ignore, suggesting that the building is not just a residence, but a domain where the past and the present collide. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves footsteps in the hallways. These are not the casual creaks of settling floors or the echoes of distant neighbors. They are deliberate, measured steps that echo in the silence of the night. Residents often awaken to the sound of footsteps pacing outside their doors, circling hallways, or ascending and descending stairwells when no one else is present. The steps sometimes stop abruptly, leaving a deafening silence that seems to press against the eardrums. At other times, the pacing continues for hours, creating an invisible presence that feels deliberate and intelligent, like an unseen tenant monitoring the living. Even more unsettling are the experiences with the elevators. Tenants have reported stepping into the elevator, pressing a floor, and being taken to levels that do not exist. Some have described opening the doors to find empty corridors that vanish when they step through, replaced by walls or stairwells that seem familiar yet impossible. In other instances, the elevator moves of its own accord, stopping at floors no one selected, and when the doors open, the hallways are always dim, eerily quiet, and somehow different from the known layout of the building. These experiences leave residents questioning not only the structure of Neon Pines, but the nature of reality itself within its walls. Local lore surrounding Neon Pines offers a possible explanation for the haunting. Some believe the apartments were built atop the site of an old gambling hall, a place where fortunes were made and lost, and where desperation often lingered in the smoke-filled air. According to the stories, the spirits of debtors and those wronged in the pursuit of money never truly left the land. They are said to roam the halls of Neon Pines, seeking to collect on debts that no longer exist, their energy lingering in invisible pockets of frustration, anger, and unfinished business. Residents have reported feeling sudden pressure on their shoulders or a chill that seems to pass directly through their bodies. Sensations attributed to these unsettled spirits moving unseen. Shadowy figures are another common sight. Tenants often catch glimpses of movement from the corner of their eyes, figures that seem to glide through walls, disappear down hallways, or vanish entirely when looked at directly. Some of these figures appear as men in suits and fedoras, reminiscent of the 1920s era. Their presence both formal and intimidating. Others are more amorphous, dark shapes that flit along stairwells or hover near elevator doors, creating the sense that the building itself is alive with watchers who have no intention of interacting directly, yet make their presence unmistakably known. The hauntings at Neon Pines are subtle yet persistent. Lights flicker in apartments with no electrical issues, doors open and close without explanation, and residents report sudden drops in temperature in specific rooms or hallways. Many tenants have described feelings of being observed even when alone, a pressure at the back of the neck or a sensation of breath on their skin that vanishes when they turn around. Some have claimed to hear whispers, indistinct and fleeting, carrying words that sound like warnings or demands, yet impossible to interpret. These occurrences, taken together, form a haunting that is both psychological and physical, tangible enough to cause fear, yet elusive enough to leave residents questioning their own perceptions. One particularly chilling account involves a long-term resident who noticed changes in his apartment over time. Objects would shift slightly when he returned home. Lights would flicker in sequences that seemed almost like communication. And on several occasions, the elevator transported him to a floor that did not appear on the building directory. During these episodes, he reported seeing figures standing silently in the hallways, watching him, their faces obscured by shadows, yet unmistakably human in form. He eventually began documenting these experiences, noting patterns in timing, location, and intensity, and became convinced that the spirits were aware of his observations, adjusting their activity in response to his attention. The energy at Neon Pines is often described as restless and deliberate. Unlike chaotic or violent hauntings found elsewhere, the building seems to possess an intelligence, responding to the living as though testing boundaries or communicating through subtle signs. Tenants learn to navigate hallways carefully, avoid certain elevators late at night, and respect the presence that appears to reside within walls, floors, and ceilings. Those who do not heed these unspoken rules often report heightened activity, from louder footsteps to more persistent shadows, suggesting a form of awareness behind the phenomena. Despite the unsettling occurrences, Neon Pines continues to be occupied. Some residents embrace the hauntings, documenting experiences and sharing stories with neighbors. Others try to maintain normalcy, but all are affected by the building's persistent sense of observation. The combination of historical significance, eerie phenomena, and subtle manipulations of space and sound creates a uniquely haunted environment, one that blends past and present into a living, breathing supernatural presence. Red Rock Heights in Las Vegas presents an unusual contrast. Nestled against the backdrop of the striking Red Rock Canyon, the apartment complex is surrounded by natural beauty, scenic vistas, and the quiet majesty of desert landscapes. From the outside, it seems like a serene, desirable place to live, a haven from the bright lights and constant motion of the city. Yet those who step inside its walls know a different reality, a world where ordinary life collides with the inexplicable, and the quiet desert air seems to amplify the presence of the unseen. Tenants and visitors alike have reported experiences that cannot be explained by logic. Events that suggest Red Rock Heights is far from ordinary and may be inhabited by forces that defy human understanding. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves whispers. Tenants often describe hearing voices murmuring in languages they do not recognize. Soft and fleeting, yet unmistakably human. The whispers seem to drift through walls and hallways, sometimes so close that they feel as though someone is speaking directly into a person's ear. Yet there is no one to be seen. Many residents have attempted to record these sounds, only to find that microphones and cameras capture nothing, leaving only the memory and the unnerving sensation that something is communicating beyond the realm of comprehension. Some believe the voices are remnants of past inhabitants, or echoes of energy imprinted on the building during its construction, while others fear that the whispers carry messages or warnings meant to be understood by no one alive. Doors opening and closing on their own is another common occurrence at Red Rock Heights. Tenants report standing in rooms, only to see closet or apartment doors swing wide, as if pushed by an unseen hand. Some claim the doors move with deliberate timing, opening at moments when the occupants are focused elsewhere, then closing softly as if hiding something. One tenant even captured footage on a security camera showing a door in their apartment slowly swinging open and a shadowy figure walking through the room before vanishing into thin air. The footage is grainy, yet the shape is distinctive, tall, humanoid form, gliding effortlessly across the apartment without touching the floor in a way that suggests normal movement. The appearance of this figure left the residents shaken, and many hours passed before they could return to the room without anxiety. Shadows are another unsettling feature of life at Red Rock Heights. Residents often notice figures appearing at the edges of their vision, moving between rooms or along hallways, only to disappear when looked at directly. Some of these shadows seem human in shape, while others are less defined, darker, and more fluid, as though the air itself has taken on a tangible form. The presence is often accompanied by subtle environmental changes, cold spots that appear suddenly, lights flickering for no reason, and the sensation of being watched even in completely empty rooms. Many tenants report that these occurrences increase in intensity at night, giving the building a palpable, almost sentient presence. Many believe that the history of Red Rock Heights may explain its unusual energy. While the building itself is relatively modern, the land on which it was built has long been significant. Some stories suggest that before development, The area was a gathering place for travelers and settlers, a place where emotions ran high, and where conflicts or tragedies may have left lingering echoes. Others speculate that the building's proximity to natural formations in Red Rock Canyon somehow channels energy from the surrounding environment, amplifying disturbances and making the apartment uniquely sensitive to unseen forces. The experiences at Red Rock Heights are not always visual or auditory. Some tenants report tactile sensations, such as brushes against the skin when no one is near, cold air passing through them, or the unmistakable feeling of being followed by an invisible presence. Objects sometimes move or vanish temporarily, only to reappear in unexpected locations, adding to the sense that the building is actively interacting with those inside. Some residents leave notes or objects in certain spots to test whether they are disturbed, often finding their placement altered by the next day, despite no human interference. One resident recounted a night when they awoke to find a shadowy figure standing at the edge of their bed. The shape did not move, did not speak, and gave no visible indication of recognition. The resident could feel a heavy pressure in the room, as if the figure's attention were focused entirely on them. When they blinked or looked away, the figure was gone, leaving only the echo of a presence that had filled the room. Stories like this are common at Red Rock Heights, reinforcing the idea that whatever resides within the building is patient, intelligent, and persistent. Despite the fear and uncertainty, life continues within Red Rock Heights. Some tenants have learned to coexist with the phenomena, treating them as part of the building's character and documenting experiences to understand patterns or potential explanations. Others avoid certain rooms, hallways, or floors altogether, wary of attracting attention from the unseen residents. The collective experiences create a sense of community among those who have witnessed the supernatural, bonding over stories that defy reason and offering support to those unnerved by the building's activity. Gold Dust Apartments in Reno is a building that, at first glance, appears perfectly ordinary. Its exterior is well maintained, its lobby clean and welcoming, and the hum of city life surrounds it during the day. But as night falls, residents know that something about Gold Dust is far from ordinary. Over the years, the apartment complex has developed a reputation among tenants for occurrences that are both unsettling and inexplicable. Those who have lived there describe experiences that suggest the building itself harbors a presence that is attentive, restless, and distinctly aware of those who occupy its spaces. One of the most unnerving phenomena reported at Gold Dust Apartments is the occurrence of sudden, localized blackouts. Unlike a typical power outage affecting an entire building or neighborhood, these blackouts occur in individual apartments, leaving a single unit plunged into darkness while the rest of the complex remains fully illuminated. The blackouts are often brief, lasting only a few minutes, yet the effect is profound. Residents frequently report a change in the atmosphere during these moments, an immediate shift in temperature, a sense of pressure in the air, and a feeling that they are not alone. The darkness seems to carry a weight, as if the apartment itself has been overtaken by an unseen presence. During these blackouts, many tenants have reported hearing whispers. These are not the casual murmurs of distant voices. They are clear, deliberate, and often intelligible. Most disturbingly, the voices call out the names of the residents themselves, echoing through the empty rooms, as if someone or something is aware of their exact location. The whispers are often accompanied by the sound of footsteps pacing just outside the bedroom door, moving with deliberate precision. The pacing is irregular yet purposeful, sometimes stopping for long stretches, only to resume with the same meticulous rhythm. Those who hear it describe a feeling of being watched, of an unseen entity observing their every move, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal itself. Some residents have reported olfactory phenomena during these episodes, describing a faint, acrid smell of burning metal permeating their apartments. The scent appears suddenly, often coinciding with the whispers and footsteps, lingering for several moments before fading as mysteriously as it arrived. The origin of the smell is never identifiable, and attempts to locate its source prove fruitless. Yet the combination of darkness, sound, and odor creates an atmosphere that is almost unbearable. A sensory onslaught that leaves tenants shaken and unnerved long after the blackout ends. The experiences at Gold Dust are not limited to the blackouts. Even when the lights are on, residents frequently notice subtle yet disturbing activity. Doors that were firmly closed may be found slightly ajar, objects are moved without explanation, and shadows flit across walls or ceilings when no one else is present. Some tenants have reported feeling sudden pressure on their shoulders, as if someone invisible is standing just behind them. Electrical devices occasionally behave erratically, turning on or off of their own accord, further reinforcing the sense that the building itself is not simply a passive structure but an active participant in the haunting. One resident recounted a particularly frightening incident during a blackout. They were alone in their apartment when the lights abruptly went out. Immediately, a cold pressure enveloped the room, and a whisper called their name. Footsteps began pacing outside the bedroom door, each one deliberate and slow. Panicked, the resident froze in place, only to catch a faint silhouette in the darkness, a figure moving through the room with impossible fluidity, barely brushing the ground as it glided silently past the furniture. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure vanished, leaving only the lingering scent of burnt metal and the sound of their own rapid heartbeat. The resident describes the experience as the most terrifying moment of their life. And even after moving out months later, the memory remains vivid. Gold Dust Apartments seems to exhibit a selective intelligence, targeting some units more frequently than others and appearing at times that feel purposeful rather than random. Tenants speculate about the origin of these disturbances, some believing that the land the building sits on may have a dark history, perhaps tied to industrial activity, accidents, or unresolved tragedies. Others suggest that the building itself has absorbed the energy of its occupants over time, amplifying fear and manifesting it as sensory phenomena. Regardless of the cause, the haunting is consistent enough to be recognized by multiple residents over many years. Despite the unsettling experiences, Gold Dust Apartments remains occupied. Some tenants adapt to the disturbances, treating them as part of life in the complex and documenting experiences to understand the patterns. Others are forced to leave, unable to cope with the persistent pressure, whispers, and spectral manifestations. The collective experiences of residents contribute to a reputation that is well known among locals, making the building a place of curiosity, fear, and speculation. Gold Dust Apartments is more than just a residence. It is a place where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural blur. The sudden blackouts, whispers calling names, footsteps that echo outside empty rooms, and the faint smell of burning metal all suggest a presence that is both deliberate and intelligent. Residents navigate their apartments with heightened awareness, wary of when the next blackout or encounter may occur. For those who have lived through it, Gold Dust is a constant reminder that the unseen world is never far away, and that some presences are patient, observant, and impossible to ignore. Tropicana Towers rises in the heart of Las Vegas, its towering presence blending with the bright lights, bustling crowds, and constant hum of the Strip. From the outside, it looks like just another modern apartment complex, offering residents convenient access to the city's casinos and nightlife. Yet within its walls, stories of unexplainable activity have circulated for decades, suggesting that Tropicana Towers harbors a secret far removed from the glamorous energy of Las Vegas. Tenants report phenomena that range from auditory hallucinations to ghostly apparitions, hinting at a presence that seems tied to the city's gambling past and unwilling to fade into silence. One of the most commonly reported experiences involves the sound of slot machines. Residents have described waking in the middle of the night to faint, rhythmic jingles of reels spinning and coins clattering, sounds that seem to echo directly through the walls of their apartments. The noise is never accompanied by any visible source, and it often occurs when all nearby casinos are closed for the night. Some tenants have reported that the sound seems to move from room to room, as if the machines themselves are floating through the building. Others claim that the volume fluctuates, rising to a nearly deafening clatter before fading back into near silence, leaving them questioning whether they are hearing echoes of memory or the manifestations of a restless spirit. Auditory experiences are often paired with visual encounters. One woman recounted waking to see a man standing in her doorway, dressed in vintage dealer attire from the mid-20th century. He was silent, his expression unreadable, yet his presence was unmistakably human. She froze, unable to move, feeling an icy pressure settle over the room. Then, as suddenly as he appeared, the figure vanished, leaving no trace other than the lingering sense of observation. Tenants describe similar experiences. Shadowy figures glimpsed out of the corner of the eye, people who appear fully formed and yet dissipate when approached, and silhouettes that seem to belong to a different era entirely. The consistency of these sightings has led many to believe that the building itself is a repository of past energies, replaying scenes from its history in a spectral loop. Some residents have reported tactile sensations in addition to sounds and sights. Doors creak open without touch, lights flicker intermittently, and cold drafts appear in rooms where the windows are tightly closed. In several cases, tenants have felt a presence near their beds, a weight pressing down, or a cold breath on their necks, only to turn and find the room empty. Objects have also been known to shift inexplicably. Glasses, books, and even personal belongings are sometimes found in different locations after a night of unusual activity. These events reinforce the impression that Tropicana Towers is alive with forces that are both intelligent and purposeful, observing and interacting with the living rather than acting out random chaos. The history of the building may shed light on its paranormal reputation. Tropicana Towers sits atop land that has been part of Las Vegas development for decades, and some accounts suggest that the site was once associated with older hotels or gaming establishments, bustling with dealers, gamblers, and late-night activity. It is thought that the spirits of those who spent long nights on the casino floor, whether workers, patrons, or individuals who met untimely ends, have left an imprint on the building, lingering in echoes of sounds, movements, and atmospheres that replay when the conditions are right. The slot machine jingles, the appearance of vintage dealers, and the intangible pressure many residents feel may all be manifestations of these historical energies refusing to be forgotten. Several tenants have described experiences that are difficult to categorize. One long-term resident reported repeatedly hearing the faint sound of a roulette ball spinning, followed by the sensation of being watched, only to glance and see a fleeting shadow retreating into a corner. Another described waking in the middle of the night to see playing cards flutter through the air as if invisible hands were shuffling a spectral deck. These events are reported across multiple apartments and floors, suggesting that the building itself may amplify or channel the energy of the past in ways that are unpredictable and disorienting. Despite the unsettling experiences, Tropicana Towers remains occupied, though those who choose to live there quickly learn to respect the unseen forces. Many tenants adapt by leaving lights on, avoiding certain hallways late at night, or even engaging with the sounds and shadows in a cautious, observational manner. Some take comfort in documenting occurrences, noting the timing, location, and intensity of supernatural events in an attempt to understand the building's rhythm. The shared experiences among residents have created a unique community, bonded not only by proximity, but by their collective awareness of a reality that exists just beyond normal perception. The hauntings at Tropicana Towers are subtle yet persistent. They are not the explosive manifestations often depicted in horror tales, but instead exist as layers of presence, observation, and interaction. The slot machine sounds, fleeting apparitions, shifting objects, and inexplicable cold drafts combine to create an environment in which the ordinary laws of physics and perception no longer fully apply. Residents learn to navigate these experiences cautiously, aware that the building seems to respond to attention and presence, as if the past itself lingers just behind the walls, waiting to be noticed. Sun Valley Apartments in Henderson stands quietly amid the suburban sprawl, its exterior unassuming and its interiors modern and functional. From the outside, it seems like an ordinary complex, offering tenants convenient living and a safe neighborhood. Yet beneath this facade lies a history rarely discussed by residents or real estate agents, a history tied to the land on which Sun Valley sits. Long before the apartments were built, this site was home to a small mining camp where miners lived, worked, and struggled against the harsh realities of the Nevada landscape. The hardships of that era seem to have left an indelible mark on the land, a lingering energy that refuses to remain dormant and manifests in the lives of those who now inhabit the apartments. Residents frequently report experiences that defy explanation, beginning with auditory phenomena. One of the most common occurrences is the sound of chains rattling in the middle of the night. The noise is precise and rhythmic, echoing down the hallways and through the apartments in a way that suggests intent. Some tenants have described waking abruptly to the sound, hearts racing, only to find their units empty and silent once they turn on the lights. The rattling is often accompanied by ghostly shouts, faint, guttural voices that sound like miners calling to each other from the depths of a tunnel long gone. The voices are sometimes coherent enough to seem like warnings, cries, or commands, yet they are always fleeting, fading into the darkness before anyone can respond. Visual phenomena accompany these unsettling sounds. One resident reported seeing a miner's lantern swinging gently in the hallway late at night. The small light cast elongated shadows across the walls, and within those shadows, figures appeared to be digging, their shapes bent and laboring as though performing the relentless work of the mine. The apparition seemed solid yet ethereal, moving with a precision that suggested awareness, yet vanishing instantly when the resident approached. Other tenants have reported glimpsing silhouettes at the edge of their vision, shadows that appeared just beyond doors or corners, moving against the flow of normal activity and disappearing when directly observed. The intensity of the activity varies, sometimes confined to single apartments, other times encompassing entire hallways or floors. Many tenants describe a sensation of pressure or being watched during these moments, an almost tactile presence that follows them through rooms and across spaces. Doors that were firmly closed creak open, lights flicker inexplicably, and objects occasionally move on their own, often in ways that reinforce the narrative of the miner's labor echoing across time. Some tenants have noted small handprints on windows or walls that vanish upon closer inspection, leaving them with a sense that the presence of the miners is not just visual or auditory, but something that can be felt. The history of the mining camp provides a framework for understanding these experiences. Life in the camp was brutal. Miners faced extreme temperatures, dangerous equipment, and accidents that were often fatal. Stories passed down through generations recount sudden collapses, injuries, and deaths that occurred in the tunnels, leaving those who perished with unresolved business or lingering attachment to the land. Many believe that the chains, lanterns, and shouts heard at Sun Valley Apartments are remnants of these lives, residual energy replaying moments of labor and tension that were never fully resolved. The persistence of these phenomena suggests not random hauntings, but echoes of human experience, bound tightly to a location that has retained memory through the centuries. Several tenants have described interactions that are more personal, almost as if the miners are aware of their presence. One resident reported stepping into the hallway during an episode and feeling an icy breeze sweep across their body, accompanied by the faint impression of a hand brushing their shoulder. Another tenant described following the sound of a lantern down a corridor, only for the light to vanish as they turned the corner, leaving them alone but shaken, with the scent of damp earth lingering in the air. These encounters create an immersive experience, one in which the living become acutely aware of the history layered beneath the apartment complex and of the spectral figures who continue their silent toil. Despite the fear such occurrences might inspire, many residents adapt to life at Sun Valley Apartments, learning to coexist with the unseen. Some leave small lights burning at night, while others document sounds and movements, hoping to identify patterns or understand the behavior of the spirits. The community of tenants has grown to share stories and warnings, a collective acknowledgement that Sun Valley is not merely a modern dwelling but a living archive of the past, sensitive to those who enter. The combination of auditory, visual, and tactile phenomena makes Sun Valley Apartments a particularly active location. Chains rattle as if dragged by invisible hands, ghostly shouts echo through hallways, and spectral lanterns illuminate figures that appear to be performing endless labor along the walls. The energy is patient, persistent, and tied intimately to the history of the land itself. Tenants navigate their apartments with heightened awareness, wary of sudden darkness or the approach of footsteps they cannot locate. Skyview Lofts, perched in the heart of Las Vegas, is a modern residential complex known for its sleek architecture, upscale finishes, and sweeping city views. On paper, it offers everything a young professional or ambitious city dweller could want. Rooftop terraces, state-of-the-art gyms, smart home systems, and floor-to-ceiling windows that capture the vibrant pulse of Las Vegas nightlife. Yet beneath its polished exterior lies a less advertised feature, one that has haunted residents for years. Skyview Lofts has developed a reputation not just for luxury, but for inexplicable and sometimes unsettling paranormal activity. Reports of strange occurrences began subtly, almost imperceptibly, according to longtime tenants. At first, it was dismissed as a quirk of a new building. Flickering lights in hallways were chalked up to faulty wiring. Shadows moving across walls were blamed on the glare of the neon city outside. But, as time went on, the reports became more specific and more disturbing. Multiple residents began noticing patterns, phenomena that could not be easily explained. One of the most commonly reported experiences involves the mirrors within the apartments. Residents describe waking to find mirrors fogged, as if someone had breathed upon them, even when the room itself was cool and dry. What made these occurrences particularly chilling were the words that appeared on the glass short, sometimes cryptic messages that seemed deliberately placed. "Leave now," one resident read one morning, written in condensation that had no logical source. Another mirror displayed a single, ominous word, "Watching." Attempts to clean or wipe the mirrors often failed. The words would return within hours, sometimes even more vividly than before. Electrical disturbances are another frequent complaint. Lights flicker at odd intervals, not merely turning on and off, but pulsing in rhythms that feel almost purposeful. Tenants have reported sequences that mimic patterns of tapping or Morse code, sometimes happening in multiple rooms at once. Some have even gone so far as to record these anomalies, only to find that the lights seem to respond to movement or even to sound. In one apartment, a resident reported that every time they spoke aloud, the lights flickered in near-perfect synchronization with the cadence of their voice. Engineers have inspected these apartments repeatedly, finding no malfunctioning circuits, and yet the disturbances persist. Shadows also seem to have a life of their own. In apartments with expansive floor-to-ceiling windows, occupants often see silhouettes that do not match the objects casting them. One tenant recalled watching a shadow stretch across the living room wall in a long, unnatural arc, even though no one had moved. The shadow lingered, shifting slightly, as if observing, before vanishing entirely. Others report fleeting figures at the edge of vision, a dark shape crossing the hall, a figure standing silently at the foot of a bed, gone the moment anyone tries to focus on it. Cameras left running for hours often capture only subtle distortions, a flicker of light, a shadow where none should be, an imperceptible movement in the corner of the frame. Some residents report auditory phenomena as well. There are whispers in empty hallways, faint murmurs that seem to ebb and flow with the movement of tenants. Doors creak open and shut on their own, sometimes slowly, almost deliberately, even in the middle of the day. The elevators occasionally emit sounds resembling muffled conversations or distant cries, which vanish the instant someone investigates. Stories of direct interaction with these apparitions are less common, but no less chilling. One resident described standing in her kitchen late at night when a drawer slid open on its own. A cold wind swept through the room, carrying a whisper, "You shouldn't be here." Another resident recounted entering the bathroom to find a figure reflected in the mirror behind them, only to turn and see nothing in the room itself. These encounters are often fleeting, leaving tenants with an uneasy mix of curiosity and fear. Despite these experiences, Skyview Lofts continues to attract tenants, many drawn to the allure of high-rise living in Las Vegas. Some dismiss the stories as exaggeration or imagination fueled by the stress of city life. Others, however, seem oddly drawn to the building's darker reputation, intrigued by the possibility of a tangible brush with the unknown. Paranormal enthusiasts and investigators have occasionally been spotted on the premises, equipment in hand, attempting to capture evidence of the unexplained. EVP sessions, thermal cameras, and motion detectors have recorded strange anomalies, unexplained temperature drops, faint voices, and sudden shifts in electromagnetic readings. Yet no investigation has produced definitive proof, leaving much to speculation and personal testimony. Interestingly, the experiences at Skyview Lofts do not appear to be confined to any one area of the building. Reports come from various floors and units, suggesting that whatever is happening is not isolated. Some tenants note that the activity intensifies during the night, particularly between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., hours traditionally associated with heightened paranormal phenomena. Others claim that certain rooms seem to carry a residual energy, a heaviness that is almost tangible, while other spaces in the same apartment feel entirely normal. Whether the activity is tied to the building's history, the land upon which it was constructed, or some other unexplainable source remains a matter of speculation. Local urban legends hint at the land's past use, though documentation is sparse. Some suggest that the energy comes from unresolved events, residual impressions of previous lives, or a lingering imprint of fear and tension. Others simply shrugged, acknowledging that some places carry a vibe that can't be measured or explained. For current and prospective residents, Skyview Lofts offers a strange dichotomy, a modern, luxurious living space with amenities and views that rival any other high-rise in Las Vegas. Yet one haunted by phenomena that challenge rational explanation. Tenants learn to coexist with flickering lights, shifting shadows, and mysterious messages, some finding a thrill in the unknown, others living with constant apprehension. Stories circulate through social media groups and online forums, each account layering onto the building's reputation as a place where the ordinary and the paranormal intersect. Skyview Lofts, in the end, remains a paradox, a place where high-end comfort meets inexplicable mystery. Residents continue to arrive, drawn by the allure of the city and the promise of luxury, only to discover that life here is never quite what it seems. Shadows linger longer than they should, whispers float through empty hallways, and mirrors tell stories no one put there for those who live inside. Skyview Lofts is more than just an apartment complex. It is a place where the line between the tangible and the unseen blurs, where every flicker of light and every shifting shadow carries a question without an answer. The building stands as a modern monument to both the allure and the unease of urban life. A high-rise haunted not just by the past, but by something that refuses to be fully understood. Silver State Apartments in Reno, Nevada, is a residential building that blends the charm of early 20th century architecture with modern conveniences. Its brick facade and vintage-style windows give it a timeless character, and the interior spaces are outfitted with contemporary appliances and upgraded finishes that appeal to tenants seeking comfort and convenience. Yet behind its elegant exterior and quiet streets lies a reputation that has long haunted its residents, an unsettling presence that many describe as impossible to ignore. Stories of the unexplained at Silver State Apartments date back decades. Residents frequently report seeing figures that appear out of nowhere, often dressed in clothing reminiscent of the early 1900s. These apparitions are rarely seen clearly. Instead, they are faint outlines, ghostly silhouettes that seem almost transparent, as though glimpsed through a haze of time. Some tenants describe these figures walking through walls, passing effortlessly from one room to another, leaving no sign of physical interaction with the environment. Others have witnessed a shadowy figure quietly sitting at the end of a bed, motionless, yet somehow exuding an awareness of the room and its occupants. One tenant, who had lived on the third floor for several months, recalled her first encounter vividly. She had been reading in bed late one evening when a pale outline appeared at the foot of her bed. It was a man in period clothing, complete with a bowler hat, standing perfectly still. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light from the street lamp outside, but the figure's presence felt tangible, heavy in the room. When she reached for her phone to turn on the lamp, the figure simply vanished into the shadows, leaving her trembling and unsure if what she had seen was real. Other residents have had similar experiences, with encounters that range from subtle to overtly terrifying. Some have reported seeing figures glide silently down hallways, disappearing into closets or behind doors. A few tenants claimed that they would catch glimpses of someone standing silently in a corner, only for the figure to vanish the moment they blinked or turned their head. These experiences often occur at night, though there are accounts of people seeing these apparitions during the day, particularly when the sunlight casts long shadows through the building's old windows. It is not only the movement of these ghostly figures that unnerves residents. It is also the sense of being watched. Tenants frequently describe an intangible awareness, as though the apartment itself is observing their every action. One woman, after repeatedly feeling this oppressive presence, left her apartment in the middle of the night and never returned. She explained later that the apartment had eyes, that it seemed to track her movements and respond to her presence in a way that no ordinary building should. This sensation of constant observation is a common theme among those who have lived in Silver State apartments, leaving many with an uneasy coexistence with the unseen. Some residents have attempted to rationalize these experiences. The building's age, they argue, could be a factor. Its walls and floors have likely absorbed decades of human activity, and perhaps these faint echoes manifest as apparitions. Others have suggested that certain units, especially those on the upper floors or at the end of hallways, are particularly prone to paranormal phenomena, possibly because of structural quirks or drafts that create illusions of movement. However, these explanations rarely satisfy those who have witnessed the phenomena firsthand. When a figure passes through a wall or sits silently at the end of a bed, the experience transcends logic and leaves a lasting impression. Auditory phenomena are also commonly reported. Tenants have described the sound of footsteps pacing along empty hallways, doors creaking open and closed by themselves, and whispers too soft to identify but persistent enough to be unnerving. Some residents report hearing conversations in old-fashioned speech patterns, phrases and tones that seem out of place in a modern apartment. There are accounts of objects moving slightly on their own, a book sliding across a table, a chair turning over, though no one is near. While some dismiss these occurrences as imagination or coincidence, the sheer consistency of the reports has created a communal recognition of the building's eerie reputation. Silver State Apartments has drawn the attention of paranormal investigators on several occasions. These teams often use cameras, motion sensors, and audio recording equipment to document unexplained phenomena. In some cases, their recordings have captured fleeting shadows, temperature fluctuations, and faint voices or murmurs that correspond with tenants' reported experiences. Despite these efforts, no definitive proof exists to fully explain the building's activity, and the mysteries continue to fuel both fear and fascination among residents and visitors alike. Interestingly, the experiences at Silver State Apartments are not confined to any one unit or floor. Accounts come from various parts of the building, suggesting that the strange occurrences are pervasive rather than isolated. Some tenants report that the intensity of the activity fluctuates, with certain nights being more active than others. These peaks often coincide with moments of heightened stress, solitude, or emotional vulnerability, leading some to speculate that the apparitions respond to the mental or emotional state of the occupants. Despite its reputation, Silver State Apartments continues to attract tenants, some drawn by the charm of its architecture and central location, others intrigued or perhaps emboldened by its haunted reputation. Online forums and social media groups are filled with stories, some terrifying, some curious, detailing encounters with the mysterious figures and the sense of being observed. For many, living in the building becomes a delicate balance between embracing the convenience and beauty of the apartments and acknowledging the unsettling presence that seems to linger just beyond sight. For those who call Silver State Apartments home, Life is a mix of comfort and unease. Some learn to coexist with the ghostly residents, treating the sightings as an oddity of daily life. Others are driven away, unable to endure the sense of being watched or the strange, inexplicable events that punctuate their evenings. Regardless of their response, the building's reputation persists. A reminder that beneath the surface of a seemingly ordinary residential complex, the past may never fully rest, and the present may never be entirely safe from its lingering echoes. The Oasis Apartments in Las Vegas has long been considered a desirable address, boasting contemporary design, spacious units, and amenities that cater to modern urban living. Its glass-fronted exterior gleams in the Nevada sun, while inside, residents enjoy high ceilings, polished floors, and balconies with panoramic views of the city. On paper, it is the perfect urban retreat. However, behind the pristine facade lies a darker reputation that has quietly haunted the building for decades. The Oasis is rumored to host a very old ghost, a woman whose tragic and mysterious death in the 1970s has left a lingering presence throughout the complex. The first signs of the supernatural are subtle, almost imperceptible. New tenants often dismiss them as quirks of a new building or the product of city life, but repeated experiences quickly challenge that notion. Many report hearing soft crying late at night, faint sobs that seem to echo through empty hallways and apartments. The sound is often described as desperate and sorrowful, a voice filled with anguish that rises and falls as though wandering from room to room. Tenants awake in the dead of night to the sound, but when they investigate, there is never anyone there. Other manifestations are far more tangible and unsettling. Doors open and close on their own, sometimes swinging gently, other times slamming without warning. Lights flicker in irregular patterns, though electrical inspections reveal no faults. In one apartment, a tenant woke to find every drawer in the kitchen slightly ajar, all the chairs moved from their usual positions. On the kitchen table, a single note rested, handwritten in neat, looping script, "I'm still here." The resident swore the apartment had been locked, and he lived alone. The incident left him shaken, and he moved out within days, joining a long list of people who left after encounters they could not explain. Many residents describe a sense of being watched, particularly in the evening hours. The feeling is subtle at first, a prickling awareness that intensifies when one is alone. Shadows move unnaturally, stretching across walls or shifting in ways that defy logic. Some have seen her apparition brief glimpses of a woman in 1970s attire, often standing silently at the edge of a room, staring with empty eyes before vanishing into thin air. A few tenants have reported seeing her reflection in mirrors or windows, only for it to disappear when they turn to face her directly. The presence feels heavy, a coldness that lingers even after the figure is gone. Auditory experiences extend beyond crying. Residents occasionally hear soft footsteps pacing their apartments when they are home alone. Some report hearing doors open and close repeatedly, or the sound of objects being moved, shuffled across tables and floors. One longtime tenant recalled waking to the sound of someone walking across the living room, only to find his apartment in perfect order moments later, save for a single chair that had inexplicably tipped over. The pattern of disturbances is inconsistent, but always personal. They seem to target specific apartments or individuals, almost as if the ghost selects who she wishes to interact with. Paranormal investigators have occasionally visited the Oasis Apartments, drawn by the building's persistent reputation. Some have captured strange phenomena on audio recordings, unexplained voices, sobbing, and occasional whispers calling names or urging residents to leave. Thermal cameras sometimes detect unexplained cold spots that move through rooms in ways that do not correspond to drafts or air vents. Motion detectors have been triggered without explanation, showing nothing on video, as if an invisible presence moves through walls and furniture. Despite repeated investigations, no concrete explanation has ever been found. The mystery endures, leaving tenants to grapple with experiences that defy logic or reason. The ghost is widely believed to be the woman who died in the 1970s, though the exact circumstances of her death remain murky. Some residents recount hearing fragments of her story, whispered by former tenants or local lore. She was said to have lived alone in the building, leading a quiet life until her sudden and unexplained death. While details vary, the consensus is that her passing was tragic and abrupt, leaving unresolved tension that may have anchored her spirit to the apartments. Over the years, her presence has become an accepted, if unwelcome, part of life at the oasis. Not all tenants experience the same phenomena, but those who do often describe a progression. Minor disturbances, like doors creaking or lights flickering, gradually escalate to more direct encounters. Objects may be moved, notes appear, or shadows manifest with increasing frequency. Residents describe an atmosphere of tension, a palpable awareness that something unseen is present in the apartment, observing their routines and movements. For some, the encounters are frightening but fleeting. For others, the intensity drives them to leave, unable to live under the weight of the unseen. Despite these occurrences, the Oasis Apartments continues to attract tenants. Many are drawn by its central location, modern conveniences, and competitive pricing. Others seem intrigued by the building's haunted reputation, curious, or even thrilled by the prospect of encountering the supernatural firsthand. Online forums and social media groups are filled with stories from current and former tenants, each account adding layers to the building's lore. Some describe it with fear, others with fascination, but nearly all agree on one point: the presence is real, and it is persistent. Living in the Oasis Apartments becomes a balancing act between comfort and unease. Tenants learn to navigate spaces that may not be entirely theirs, to accept the subtle, sometimes unnerving signs of the woman's presence, and to respect the history that lingers in the walls. For those who experience her directly, life in the apartment is never ordinary. Chairs may be moved, doors may open by themselves, and sobbing may echo through the hallways in the dead of night. And yet, the building continues to function as a home for many, a place where the modern world collides with echoes of the past, and where one must live with the knowledge that they are never truly alone. Pyramid Heights stands prominently on the Las Vegas skyline, its sharp, triangular structure cutting a striking silhouette against the desert horizon. From the outside, it is a marvel of modern architecture, gleaming glass panels reflecting the neon lights of the Strip, and sleek metal beams forming precise geometric angles. To the casual observer, it is just another luxurious high-rise in a city that thrives on spectacle. But those who live within Pyramid Heights tell a different story, one of shadows, whispers, and an unsettling presence that lingers long after the sun sets. The building's unusual shape has drawn attention since its construction. Designed to resemble a pyramid in 3 dimensions, its apex points skyward like a silent monolith, while the walls taper at sharp angles, creating corridors and apartments that feel both grand and strangely claustrophobic. Some architectural enthusiasts praise the design for its innovation and aesthetic precision, but locals whisper that the shape holds a more mysterious, spiritual significance. They say the pyramid channels energy in ways that are beyond human understanding, shaping not only the building, but the experiences of those who dwell within. Residents have reported experiences that defy explanation. Many describe fleeting visions of shadowed figures standing just at the edge of perception. They are not solid, nor do they move in ordinary ways. They appear, vanish, and sometimes seem to linger in the corner of one's vision. Witnesses often recount feeling an intense gaze upon them, only to turn and find empty air. Some claim these figures mirror human forms, while others say they are amorphous, their shapes shifting like smoke caught in a draft. The encounters leave residents shaken, and a pervasive unease settles over those who live in the upper floors, where the apex of the pyramid seems to magnify the building's mysterious energies. Odd noises accompany these sightings. Residents hear whispers that rise from nowhere, faint but persistent, as if the walls themselves were speaking in hushed tones. Doors creak on their own, the sound echoing down long, narrow corridors that wind at odd angles due to the building's unconventional design. Footsteps pace the hallways late at night, yet when anyone investigates, the sounds vanish, leaving only the eerie silence that follows. Some tenants report their own voices, repeating back to them in distorted, almost mocking echoes, as though the building listens and responds. The patterns of sound defy logic, sometimes moving from one side of the building to another without a trace, suggesting an intelligence or consciousness within the structure itself. Stories circulate among residents of encounters that border on the surreal. One woman recalls waking to find a shadow standing at the foot of her bed, elongated and angular, perfectly mirroring the pyramid's geometry. She froze, unable to move, and when she finally blinked, it was gone, leaving her in a silence so complete that even the hum of the air conditioning felt intrusive. Another tenant describes walking through a hallway when the walls themselves seemed to shift slightly, as if breathing, narrowing, and expanding around him. He felt a pull toward the apex of the building, a sensation he cannot explain except to describe as magnetic, almost ritualistic. These personal accounts build a tapestry of unease that few can fully articulate but many feel deeply. Even the elevators contribute to the building's unsettling reputation. Tenants report that elevator cars stop at floors that were not requested or move in directions contrary to the buttons pressed. Some claim to feel sudden chills, cold air swirling despite the climate control, or see a fleeting shadow pass behind the glass doors. A few brave souls have attempted to document these anomalies, only to find that cameras malfunction at precisely the moment strange activity occurs. Images are blurred, lights flicker, and recordings cut abruptly, reinforcing the idea that Pyramid Heights is resistant to objective scrutiny. The building's management, aware of its reputation, takes a cautious approach. Maintenance crews report nothing unusual when checking electrical or plumbing systems. Yet tenants continue to speak of phenomena that defy natural explanation. New residents are often skeptical, dismissing the stories as exaggerations or products of imagination. But even the most rational among them eventually acknowledge subtle, inexplicable occurrences: a light that turns on by itself, a cold draft that moves against the flow of air, or the faintest whisper carrying a name not meant to be spoken aloud. The building seems to test its inhabitants, measuring belief, fear, and attention in equal measure. Urban legends surrounding Pyramid Heights have grown over the years. Some claim the building was constructed on sacred or cursed land, though no official record confirms this. Others speculate that the pyramid shape itself is a conduit for spirits or energies trapped between dimensions, attracting those sensitive to the unseen. Certain floors are said to be more active than others, particularly the higher levels where the apex concentrates energy. Long-term residents speak of hotspots where shadows gather, whispers intensify, and footsteps echo with deliberate cadence. These areas are treated with quiet respect or avoidance, as though acknowledging an invisible presence ensures one's safety. Despite the unease, Pyramid Heights continues to attract tenants. Many are drawn by its prestige, luxury, and panoramic views of the Las Vegas Strip and surrounding desert. But life within the triangular walls is never ordinary. The building's energy, subtle and insistent, infiltrates everyday routines. A casual conversation can be interrupted by a whisper. No one else hears. A hallway stroll can end with a feeling of eyes watching from an unseen corner, and a quiet evening can be shattered by creaks and knocks that defy explanation. Residents learn to live with these disturbances, adapting, ignoring, or sometimes confronting them, but always with a heightened sense of awareness that the building is more than concrete, glass, and steel. Visitors occasionally venture in, seeking to capture photographs or experience the paranormal firsthand. They leave with uneasy feelings, recounting glimpses of shadowy figures or the sensation of being followed. Photographs often reveal anomalies, faint outlines, strange reflections, or areas of darkness that seem to pulse unnaturally, yet no pattern emerges, leaving each experience subjective, a fragment of a larger, inscrutable whole. Pyramid Heights remains enigmatic, its true nature shrouded beneath layers of perception and speculation. A triangular edifice that challenges understanding while quietly asserting its presence. In the end, Pyramid Heights is more than a building. It is a living enigma. Its shape, its sounds, and its shadows conspire to create an atmosphere unlike any other in Las Vegas. For some, it is an elegant home with breathtaking views. For others, a place of constant unease, where the line between the physical and the spiritual blurs. Shadowed figures, whispers, and creaking hallways are not merely tales, they are the persistent reality of life within Pyramid Heights. To live there is to accept a world where the unseen is never far and where every corner may conceal more than meets the eye, leaving residents to wonder whether the true pyramid is its architecture or the mysteries it contains. Cactus View Apartments, perched on the edge of Henderson's arid outskirts, seems at first glance like any other residential complex. Its sun-bleached walls and neat rows of cacti give it a quiet charm, a small oasis in the desert. Yet beneath the carefully maintained exterior, the apartments carry a reputation that has kept many prospective tenants at bay. Built near the site of an abandoned desert homestead, the property seems to hold a lingering connection to a past long forgotten. Locals whisper that the homestead was once home to a family who disappeared under mysterious circumstances decades ago, leaving behind only the skeletal remains of their adobe walls and a scattering of personal belongings buried in the sand. Over the years, the stories of strange occurrences have clung to the site like dust on the desert floor. Residents of Cactus View frequently report experiences that cannot be easily explained. One of the most common accounts involves seeing figures at night, standing silently outside windows or moving across hallways. These figures are often described as shadowy and indistinct, their faces blurred or hidden in darkness. Several tenants have recalled waking in the dead of night to find someone or something standing at the foot of their bed, only to vanish when approached. Others describe glimpses of individuals in old-fashioned clothing, as if stepping out of a time long before the apartment complex existed. The figures rarely interact directly, but their presence is unmistakable, leaving an unsettling feeling of being watched. Alongside these visual apparitions, auditory phenomena are reported throughout the complex. Tenants have heard fragmented voices drifting through the hallways, especially during the late hours of the night. The voices often speak in whispers, half-formed sentences that seem to come from multiple directions at once. Some report hearing phrases like, "Don't go out there," or "They're still here," though the words are never complete enough to provide clear meaning. The sound is faint but persistent, echoing off the walls as though the building itself has absorbed the warnings of its past inhabitants. For some, the voices come accompanied by the creaking of floorboards or the soft rattle of doors, sounds that give the impression of someone or something moving stealthily through the apartments. One resident, a young woman named Leela, moved into Cactus View seeking solitude after a particularly stressful year. She chose a top-floor apartment overlooking the desert, imagining long evenings spent watching the sunset and reading quietly. However, her first night was far from peaceful. As she settled into bed, she heard the faint scraping of nails against the window pane. When she turned on her flashlight and looked outside, there was no one there, only the dark silhouette of a lone cactus swaying in the breeze. Over the following weeks, the disturbances escalated. Lila would wake to whispers in her ears, sometimes as clear as a conversation, but always fragmented, never fully forming into intelligible words. She began seeing a figure standing in the hallway outside her apartment at irregular intervals, its features obscured by shadow. Each time she blinked or stepped closer, the figure would dissolve, leaving her questioning whether she had imagined it. Other tenants have shared similarly unnerving encounters. A retired couple reported hearing the laughter of children echoing through the complex late at night. Despite the apartments being largely empty, a maintenance worker claimed to see a man in old work clothes wandering through the parking lot, only to vanish when he approached. Some residents have even described the sensation of being gently touched by unseen hands, or feeling a cold presence hovering near them while they slept. Though none of these occurrences result in harm, the cumulative effect has created an atmosphere of persistent unease. Despite the unsettling activity, some tenants report experiencing moments of inexplicable comfort within the apartments. A few claim to feel a warm presence while sitting near certain windows at sunset, as if the spirits of the past are simply observing rather than seeking to harm. Others have mentioned hearing soft humming or distant singing, moments that contrast sharply with the eerie whispers and shadowed figures, suggesting that not all the lingering energy is malevolent. These experiences have led some to believe that the site holds a complex mixture of residual memory from the homestead, with echoes of past life interacting unpredictably with the present. The architecture of Cactus View itself seems to play a role in amplifying these phenomena. Its long corridors, narrow stairwells, and high ceilings create echoes that distort sounds, while the large windows and reflective surfaces sometimes make fleeting shadows appear where none exists. The desert environment further intensifies the feeling of isolation, with nights so quiet that the faintest sound seems amplified. Many tenants note that disturbances are more pronounced on particularly hot or windy nights, when the desert air carries sounds in unexpected ways and the shifting light creates strange visual effects. Local historians have taken an interest in the property, documenting the history of the abandoned homestead and the surrounding area. Records show that the original family struggled with isolation, financial hardship, and mysterious disappearances that were never fully explained. Archaeological surveys have uncovered remnants of old structures, buried tools, and scattered belongings, suggesting a life abruptly interrupted. Some theorists suggest that these traumatic events left a psychic imprint on the land, a residual energy that the apartments now absorb. Whether the occurrences at Cactus View Apartments are the result of supernatural forces, the human mind reacting to isolation and suggestion, or some combination of both, the effect on tenants is real and immediate. Many residents speak of learning to live with the strange sounds and fleeting shadows, while others choose to leave after only a few weeks. Despite this, the complex continues to attract tenants, drawn either by affordable rent, desert views, or the allure of experiencing the unexplained firsthand. In the end, Cactus View Apartments remains a place where past and present intersect in uneasy ways. The shadowed figures, ghostly whispers, and unexplained sensations continue to haunt the hallways, leaving each new resident to confront the lingering echoes of lives long gone. For those willing to face it, the complex offers not only shelter, but a window into a history that refuses to be forgotten, a quiet reminder that some places, no matter how modern or ordinary they appear, hold the energy of what came before. Cactus View stands as a testament to the desert's mysteries, a reminder that even in the heart of Henderson, the past is never truly gone. Each flicker of shadow, each fragment of a whispered sentence, serves as a subtle invitation to witness the invisible threads connecting the present to a bygone era. For some, it is a thrill. For others, a warning. In either case, life at Cactus View Apartments is never entirely ordinary, and the desert itself seems to hold its breath, watching over the complex as it has for generations. Red Lantern Apartments, situated on a quiet stretch of Las Vegas, just off the main thoroughfare, is a building that wears its history like a shadow. Once a boutique hotel, catering to travelers seeking an intimate, refined experience, it was later converted into apartment units. But the charm that once drew guests seems to have carried something darker along with it. Longtime residents and newcomers alike speak in hushed tones about the strange occurrences that define life within its red-hued walls. The building's dark reputation is well known in local circles, and those who have lived there report experiences that blur the line between the living world and something far less tangible. Tenants frequently report hearing faint music drifting through the hallways and rooms, often at times when no one could possibly be playing it. Some describe it as soft piano notes, delicate and melancholic, while others say they hear the echo of an old jazz band, lively yet somehow mournful. The melodies are never complete songs, only fragments, looping endlessly, as though the building itself is trapped in some moment of its past life. Alongside the music, there are other sounds that seem to follow residents through the apartments. Low laughter, sometimes feminine, sometimes masculine, carried on the thin walls, often accompanied by the echo of footsteps. Tenants describe the footsteps as starting in one room, then continuing along the corridor, sometimes seeming to move behind them, around corners, even appearing in rooms they have left just moments before. Some of the more unsettling reports involve the sensation of being watched. Several residents have recounted waking in the dead of night to find themselves unable to move, their senses filled with the feeling that someone or something is observing them. Shadows seem to linger longer than they should, stretching across walls and furniture, coalescing into vague human shapes at the periphery of vision. A few residents insist they have glimpsed figures standing silently by their beds, vanishing when approached, leaving only the lingering scent of old perfume or tobacco, as if the specters are imprints of past guests or staff who never truly left. One particularly chilling account comes from a tenant named Marcus, who had moved in hoping for a quiet place to work on his writing. On his second night, he awoke to the sound of faint footsteps crossing his living room. When he opened his eyes, he saw a shadowy figure pause near the doorway, its form indistinct but undeniably humanoid. The figure did not move closer, yet Marcus felt the pressure of being watched, as though every movement, every breath, was noted. The figure faded when he blinked, leaving Marcus trembling, unsure if sleep had betrayed him or if something had lingered from the building's past. Over the following weeks, he began to hear whispers in the hallway, always just beyond the threshold of comprehension, as if fragments of conversation had been preserved within the walls themselves. The experience ultimately drove him to leave, joining a small but growing number of tenants who chose to abandon the Red Lantern apartments. Other residents report similar encounters, though not all leave immediately. Some attempt to rationalize the phenomena, attributing sounds to old plumbing, thin walls, or the natural settling of a building constructed decades earlier. Yet the patterns are difficult to ignore. Footsteps that echo precisely when no one is present, laughter that stops when lights are turned on, and glimpses of figures that seem almost aware of the observer's gaze. The recurrence of these events over years suggests something beyond simple coincidence or misinterpretation. The building itself, with its intricate architecture, seems to amplify the unsettling atmosphere. Narrow hallways, high ceilings, and dark corners create pockets where sound carries strangely, and shadows appear to move on their own. Windows reflect glimpses of light that don't correspond with the natural environment outside, adding to the sense that the Red Lantern exists partially out of sync with the world around it. Residents note that disturbances are often more pronounced during stormy nights, when the wind rattles the old framework and rain splatters against the windows, or in the quiet hours just before dawn, when silence magnifies the faintest noises. Historical records reveal why the building's energy feels so heavy. As a boutique hotel, it once catered to a clientele seeking exclusivity, but also held behind its doors stories of scandal, heartbreak, and sudden deaths. Staff members recall guests vanishing overnight, romances ending in tragedy, and disputes that escalated beyond what anyone could contain. Though decades have passed, the building seems to retain echoes of those events, a lingering sense of lives abruptly altered or cut short. Some theorists describe the phenomena as residual energy, an imprint left on the walls and hallways, replaying fragments of its dramatic past for anyone sensitive enough to notice. For residents who choose to remain, life at Red Lantern is a delicate balance between acceptance and vigilance. Some report adapting to the strange sounds, even finding a peculiar comfort in the music and whispers, as if the building has a personality all its own. Others take precautions, keeping lights on, playing music to mask the echoes, or avoiding certain hallways at night. Social media forums for the complex reveal a spectrum of experiences. Some tenants thrive despite tour, even because of the building's history, while others leave after only a few months, citing a constant, unnerving feeling of observation. Visitors to Red Lantern often feel a shift in atmosphere as soon as they step inside. The air carries a faint chill, and the echoes of the past seem woven into the very fabric of the building. Even those who do not live there speak of an inexplicable sense of being watched, a persistent awareness that the apartments are more than mere walls and floors. In the end, Red Lantern Apartments stands as a monument to its own history, a building where past and present coexist in uneasy harmony. The faint music, low laughter, and shadowed footsteps are not merely reminders of what once was, they are invitations to experience the intangible, to confront the lingering presence of lives that cannot fully let go. And every sound, shadow, or fleeting figure serves as a reminder that some places never truly forget. The Red Lantern remains a site of fascination and fear, a living repository of echoes from decades past. Tenants come seeking a home, but what they find is something more complex. A connection to a history that refuses to rest, a subtle, unshakable awareness that the past is never truly gone, and a chilling sense that the apartments themselves are quietly watching, listening, and remembering everything that happens within their walls. Desert Mirage Apartments, located on the outskirts of Las Vegas, carries a reputation that precedes its desert-colored facade. Built near the site of a long-closed brothel from the 1950s, the complex sits on a plot of land with a history many locals prefer not to discuss. While the building itself was eventually demolished, its legacy seems to linger in ways that residents of Desert Mirage cannot ignore. Strange occurrences, fleeting figures, and inexplicable sounds have become part of daily life for those who call the apartments home. Many tenants report seeing apparitions dressed in vintage clothing from the 1950s. These figures appear mostly at night, roaming the hallways or peering out from apartment windows. Some are described as women in dresses with singed waists and curled hairstyles, walking as if performing a routine from a life long gone. Others are men in suits, hats tilted at precise angles, their footsteps echoing softly along the corridor. The apparitions rarely acknowledge the living, moving with a quiet purpose that suggests they are trapped in a moment of the past, repeating actions that once had meaning. Residents who have glimpsed them often describe an immediate chill, a sense that they are witnessing a fragment of history brought to life, and a feeling of unease that lingers long after the figure has vanished. In addition to visual phenomena, Desert Mirage is known for its auditory disturbances. Whispers drift through the hallways, sometimes soft and almost musical, and other times urgent and desperate. Residents have reported hearing laughter that seems to come from nowhere, light and teasing at first, then gradually shifting to a harsher, more insistent tone. On some nights, the laughter is abruptly interrupted by urgent warnings voices, calling out phrases like, "Leave now," or "Go while you can," only to revert seconds later to soft giggles. This sudden shift leaves tenants disoriented, unsure whether the sound originates from human ears or the memories embedded in the building itself. The combination of playful and threatening tones contributes to an atmosphere of constant tension, as if the past and present are colliding within the walls. One long-term resident, a man named Julian, recounted his experience with the Desert Mirage in vivid detail. He had moved into the complex for its affordable rent and convenient location, never imagining that he would encounter the echoes of a bygone era. On his first night, he heard faint music drifting down the hall, soft jazz reminiscent of smoky lounges and neon lights. Curious, he stepped into the corridor, only to see a woman in a red dress gliding past him. Her features were indistinct, blurred as though caught between two worlds, but the movement was deliberate, measured, almost choreographed. Julian froze, feeling a presence behind him that seemed to mirror the woman's steps. The music ceased abruptly, and in its place, a whispering voice warned him to leave. By morning, the experience had left him shaken, and for days afterward, he could feel an unseen gaze following him through the apartment. Other tenants report similar experiences. A young couple described walking to their apartment to find the faint sound of heels clicking along the hallway. When they opened the door, there was no one inside, yet the hallway seemed heavier, as if it retained the memory of footsteps. A single mother mentioned hearing a child's laughter drifting from an empty unit, followed by the whisper of "Don't stay here." Some have even spoken of furniture shifting slightly, doors opening and closing on their own, and lights flickering at precise moments when apparitions are visible. Each incident adds to the complex's reputation, creating an atmosphere that feels alive with invisible watchers and echoes of lives long past. The layout of Desert Mirage appears to amplify these experiences. Long, narrow hallways, high ceilings, and dimly lit stairwells create spaces where sound carries in unusual ways. Shadows appear to stretch and move independently of any light source, while reflective surfaces sometimes show fleeting images of figures who are no longer physically present. Tenants have noted that certain hallways and rooms are hotspots for activity, areas where laughter, whispers, or apparitions appear repeatedly, as if the building retains specific memories in its structure. Despite these eerie occurrences, some residents find ways to coexist with the strange activity. A few describe a sense of nostalgia in the apparitions, feeling that the figures are replaying moments of joy or camaraderie from another era. Others have chosen to embrace the mystery, documenting unusual sounds or movements in hopes of understanding the forces at play. Yet there are those who cannot endure it, leaving the complex after only a few weeks or months, citing the persistent feeling of being watched, the intrusive whispers, or the unsettling shifts in temperature and light that seem tied to spectral presence. Local historians and paranormal enthusiasts have taken interest in Desert Mirage, examining both its modern construction and the land's past as a hub of illicit activity. Archival research confirms that the brothel was a lively, sometimes volatile place, hosting figures from across the city who left a mark on the location through intense emotional experiences, secretive behavior, and occasional tragedy. Paranormal researchers suggest that these intense events, combined with the modern structure built over the original site, create an environment where past and present overlap, allowing glimpses of history to appear in the everyday lives of tenants. Ultimately, Desert Mirage Apartments exists as a unique intersection of history and the supernatural. The figures in vintage clothing, the mixture of laughter and urgent warnings, and the subtle sensations of being observed make the complex a place where the past is never truly gone. For residents, each night is a negotiation with the echoes of another era, and every sound, shadow, or whisper serves as a reminder that some places retain the energy of those who lived and worked there long before modern tenants arrived. For those willing to experience it, Desert Mirage offers more than a home. It is a living archive of memories and emotions, replaying in fragmented forms and providing a window into lives that refuse to be forgotten. The desert air, the hallways, and the lingering presence of the past combine to create an atmosphere both captivating and unnerving. A place where every step could bring a glimpse of history and every whisper may carry the voice of a forgotten time. Sunrise Apartments, located in a quiet residential area of Reno, has long held a reputation that keeps some prospective tenants at a cautious distance. The complex itself is modest, its beige walls and tidy landscaping giving the impression of an ordinary apartment building. But those who live there know that appearances can be deceiving. Over the years, Sunrise Apartments has become known for unusual activity that cannot be easily explained. Flickering lights, sudden cold drafts, and inexplicable shadows moving across walls and floors have become a part of daily life for residents. While some dismiss these occurrences as quirks of an older building, others insist that the apartments are home to something more, an energy or presence that lingers long after its origin has been forgotten. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves the lighting throughout the complex. Tenants describe lights flickering with no electrical reason, bulbs dimming and brightening on their own, or suddenly going out and then returning. These disturbances often occur at night, sometimes in sync with other strange events, like shadows shifting along hallways or the faintest whispers drifting through the air. Some residents have described the effect as unsettling, a feeling that the building itself is aware of their presence, subtly altering its environment to make its occupants uneasy. Shadows are another common occurrence. Tenants report seeing figures that move independently of the lighting, appearing and disappearing at the edge of vision. Some shapes are fleeting, glimpsed only in peripheral vision, while others linger for moments that feel longer than time should allow. One resident recalled watching a shadow cross her living room floor, slowly, as if pacing, only for it to vanish when she blinked or approached. Others have noted shadows stretching unnaturally along walls or taking forms that resemble human shapes but never fully materialize. These visual disturbances are often accompanied by other signs of unseen presence: a door slightly ajar that was previously closed, an object out of place, or a faint scent of something familiar yet intangible. Among the many stories shared by residents, one account stands out for its haunting detail. A woman named Marissa, who moved into Sunrise Apartments, seeking solitude while working on her writing, recounted an experience that left her both terrified and mesmerized. She had been asleep when she woke to the sound of singing, soft and melancholic, drifting from somewhere nearby. The voice was clear but haunting, carrying a weight of sorrow and longing that seemed to fill the entire apartment. Driven by curiosity and unease, she followed the sound through her apartment, expecting to find a neighbor, a radio, or some ordinary source. But when she arrived in the living room, there was no one there. The singing had stopped, and the only evidence of recent activity was a chair, gently rocking, as if someone had just left it. Marissa described the sensation of being watched, the chill that lingered in the room, and the impossibility of explaining what she had experienced. Other tenants have shared experiences that echo Marissa's encounter. A retired couple reported hearing soft footsteps pacing outside their bedroom door, only to find the hallway empty upon checking. A young man described seeing a shadowed figure stand at the foot of his bed before disappearing when he turned on the light. Children in the complex have spoken of whispers calling their names or toys moving on their own. Though none of these events resulted in physical harm, the psychological impact on residents is unmistakable, fostering an environment of tension and heightened awareness. The architecture of Sunrise Apartments may contribute to these experiences. Its narrow hallways, high ceilings, and older construction create echoes and reflections that can make ordinary movements and sounds seem distorted or multiplied. Tenants have noted that activity is often most pronounced in areas with corners and alcoves, where shadows can gather and carry the faintest noises. Windows and glass surfaces occasionally reflect figures that are not there. And ambient light from the surrounding city can cast long, shifting shadows that appear to move independently of the real world. Combined with the desert chill that creeps through the building during cold nights, these elements give Sunrise Apartments an uncanny atmosphere that residents describe as almost sentient. Paranormal enthusiasts who have visited the complex suggest that the site may hold residual energy, a phenomenon where intense emotion or unresolved events leave a lingering imprint on a location. Historical research shows that the land on which Sunrise Apartments was built has a long and varied past, including periods of transient housing, abandoned buildings, and local tragedies that may have contributed to the energy now reported by residents. Some theorists believe that the singing Marissa heard could be a form of residual memory, replayed in cycles without consciousness, while shadows and flickering lights might be manifestations of that same lingering energy interacting with the physical space. Despite these eerie occurrences, some residents have found ways to live with the anomalies. Many choose to focus on their routines, learning to ignore the flickering lights and shadows, or even finding comfort in the strange sounds, interpreting them as reminders of the building's character rather than threats. Others, however, cannot endure the persistent feeling of being observed, the inexplicable movements, or the sudden sounds that fill empty rooms and leave after only a short stay. The stories of former residents who departed abruptly add to the mystique of Sunrise Apartments, reinforcing its reputation as a place where the ordinary and the unexplainable intersect. For those who remain, Sunrise Apartments is both a home and a place of mystery. Each night brings the potential for shadows to appear, for lights to flicker, and for whispers or melodies to drift through empty rooms. The rocking chair in Marissa's living room remains an enduring symbol for tenants, a tangible reminder that something unseen may inhabit the space alongside them. Residents learn to navigate the building with a heightened awareness, attuned to the subtle signs that indicate a presence just beyond perception. Ultimately, Sunrise Apartments exists as a complex layered with history and spectral energy. The flickering lights, unexplained shadows, and melancholic singing create an atmosphere where the ordinary and the extraordinary coexist. For tenants, every room carries a story, every corridor a lingering memory, and every sound a reminder that some presences refuse to remain unseen. It is a place where the past lingers quietly, shaping the present in ways that are as mysterious as they are inescapable, leaving all who live there to wonder what or who might be watching, waiting, and listening in the darkness. Desert Sky Lofts, located in the sprawling outskirts of Las Vegas, is a modern-looking residential complex with sleek lines, tall windows, and rooftop terraces that promise scenic desert views. Yet beneath its contemporary appearance lies a history and presence that residents describe as anything but ordinary. Since its opening, occupants have reported a range of unsettling experiences, from electrical disturbances to apparitions that appear at the edges of rooms. The building has gained a quiet but persistent reputation among locals for being haunted. And for those who live there, the unusual activity is impossible to ignore. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at Desert Sky Lofts involves unexplained electrical disturbances. Lights flicker intermittently, sometimes dimming or brightening without any apparent cause. Ceiling fans turn on or off on their own, and appliances, even when unplugged, have been observed operating momentarily. Tenants describe these events as unnerving, particularly because the disturbances often seem to coincide with other strange occurrences, such as the sudden appearance of shadowed figures or inexplicable cold spots. Some residents have taken to keeping small lamps or electronics on at night, feeling safer with the soft hum of electricity around them, even as the flickering persists. Ghostly figures are another hallmark of life at Desert Sky Lofts. Residents often describe seeing shadows or translucent shapes at the periphery of their vision, disappearing when looked at directly. The figures vary in size and appearance, but many share a hauntingly human quality. Some appear as adults, walking slowly through hallways, while others take the form of children, small and insubstantial, yet unsettlingly distinct. These sightings are frequently accompanied by feelings of unease, as if the figures are aware of the living presence in the room, silently observing, or even communicating through gestures and movements. One man, a tenant named Paul, recounted an experience that left a lasting impression. One night, while returning to his apartment, he noticed a faint shimmer at the end of the hallway. As he approached, he saw a transparent child, small and ethereal, standing near the wall. The child's features were delicate, blurred, yet unmistakably human. It raised a hand, pointing toward the elevator, and its gaze was imploring, filled with urgency. Paul described a chilling sensation, as though the child's silent message carried a warning. He could feel deep in his chest. Shaken, he obeyed instinctively, stepping into the elevator and leaving the floor, only to glance back and find the hallway empty. The incident left him deeply unsettled, a constant reminder of the unexplainable forces at work in the building. Other tenants report similar interactions with unseen presences. A young woman described waking to find the faint outline of a man standing at her bedroom door, motionless but clearly watching. She noticed that certain objects, books, chairs, even decorative items, were often slightly moved from where she had placed them, as if handled by unseen hands. Another resident claimed that at night, shadows would gather near the windows, elongated and warped, their forms distinct yet impossible to categorize. These occurrences often happen in patterns, leading some to believe that the building retains a form of residual energy, replaying fragments of past events or emotions that once took place in the same space. The architecture of Desert Sky Lofts appears to amplify these phenomena. Its high ceilings, wide-open floor plans, and reflective surfaces create conditions where light and shadow interact in unexpected ways, making fleeting glimpses of figures appear more tangible. Long corridors and stairwells act as natural echo chambers, carrying faint noises, footsteps, whispers, or even laughter that seem to originate from empty spaces. Many residents note that disturbances are particularly pronounced in certain areas, such as near the elevator's hallways, connecting apartments and corners that catch the desert wind, suggesting that specific spots in the building may serve as focal points for paranormal activity. The history of the site adds further layers to the unsettling nature of the complex. While Desert Sky Lofts is relatively new, it was built near land that has seen decades of human activity, including periods of transient habitation, abandoned structures, and reports of sudden, unexplained deaths in the area. Paranormal researchers suggest that the intense emotions associated with those events, fear, loss, and isolation, may leave residual energy that manifests in the building's modern structure. Shadows, flickering lights, and ghostly figures could all be expressions of that lingering energy, responding to the presence of the living or replaying moments that were never fully resolved. Despite the unnerving experiences, some residents choose to remain, finding ways to coexist with the unexplained. Some embrace the activity as part of the building's unique character, documenting unusual events or attempting to interact with the presences in controlled ways. Others take precautions, such as keeping nightlights on, avoiding certain hallways at night, or leaving doors open to reduce the sensation of confinement. Yet there are those who leave quickly, unable to endure the constant feeling of observation, the sudden cold drafts, or the inexplicable movements of objects and shadows. For those who live there, Desert Sky Lofts is more than a building. It is a space where the ordinary and the extraordinary intersect. The flickering lights, electrical anomalies, and ghostly figures create a sense that the past lingers alongside the present, shaping daily life in subtle but persistent ways. Every shadow in the hallway, every unexpected hum of electricity, and every glimpse of a translucent figure serves as a reminder that the complex is alive with unseen presences. Ultimately, Desert Sky Lofts is a place where the boundary between the living and the unseen is porous. The transparent child in the hallway, the figures at the edges of rooms, and the sudden activation of appliances all contribute to an environment that is both unnerving and fascinating. For residents, life here is a careful negotiation with the unknown, a constant awareness that while the building may appear modern and ordinary by day, it holds memories and presences that refuse to remain hidden. The complex stands as a testament to the idea that even the newest structures can carry the weight of history and energy, leaving occupants to navigate the delicate balance between the world they see and the one that watches. From just beyond perception, Silver Ridge Apartments, located on the outskirts of Henderson, presents a calm and unassuming exterior by day. Its neat rows of beige buildings and well-maintained landscaping give the impression of a peaceful residential community. The sun casts a warm glow across the desert's surroundings, and passing pedestrians would see nothing unusual, just another quiet apartment complex. Yet, for the residents who live there, the silence by daylight is deceptive. As night falls, the stillness of Silver Ridge transforms into an environment that is far from ordinary. Strange sounds, cold drafts, and fleeting shadows create an unsettling atmosphere, leaving tenants to question whether the complex is truly empty. One of the most reported phenomena at Silver Ridge involves the whispering that fills the empty hallways. Residents describe hearing faint voices, sometimes indistinguishable and fragmented, carrying warnings or incomplete sentences that seem directed yet impossible to interpret fully. At first, many assume these sounds are echoes of other tenants, or the creaking and settling of the building. But as the nights continue, the whispers persist, appearing in hallways where no one else is present. Some tenants hear multiple voices simultaneously, overlapping in strange rhythms, as if more than one entity is speaking at once. The effect is disorienting, a subtle but persistent sense that the building itself is communicating or at least replaying fragments of its past. Footsteps are another common occurrence. Residents have reported hearing pacing along the stairwells, or soft steps echoing across the hallways, sometimes approaching their apartments, only to vanish when they open the door. The footsteps often follow them from room to room, an invisible presence that seems aware of their movements. One tenant, a man named Leonard, described walking to the laundry room in the middle of the night, only to hear slow, deliberate steps behind him. When he turned, there was no one there. Yet the sound continued until he reached the stairs, where it abruptly stopped. Leonard later mentioned that even in broad daylight, he would occasionally sense the echo of those steps lingering in the hallways, a residual imprint of something unseen. Cold drafts are another unnerving feature of life at Silver Ridge. Even in the desert heat, tenants report sudden drops in temperature that seem to follow them from room to room. Doors that were previously closed feel icy to the touch, and windows occasionally rattle, despite a lack of wind. Residents have noted that these drafts often occur in conjunction with other disturbances, such as whispering or flickering lights, as though the building itself is orchestrating a series of subtle but deliberate events. The combination of auditory and physical sensations contributes to a pervasive feeling of being watched, a sensation that many tenants find impossible to shake. One particularly chilling experience was shared by a woman named Marcy, who had moved into Silver Ridge seeking quiet and solitude. She awoke one night to the sound of whispers drifting through her hallway. At first she thought it was her imagination, but the voices grew clearer, forming fragmented phrases like, "Don't stay here," and "Go now." Feeling unnerved, she stepped into the corridor and saw the faint outline of a shadow moving along the wall. The figure did not approach, but seemed to glide, passing through the hallway with deliberate intent. Marcy described the sensation of being followed as she moved back into her apartment. Cold air seemed to sweep past her from room to room, and she felt an unseen presence lingering just out of reach. By morning, she was shaken, unable to explain what had happened, and she soon noticed that others in the building had reported similar experiences. Other tenants have shared stories that reinforced the building's eerie reputation. A retired couple mentioned hearing the faint sound of conversation in a completely empty apartment next door. A young man described seeing shadows that appeared to move independently of any light source, stretching across walls or disappearing when he tried to focus on them. Children in the complex have spoken of hearing soft footsteps at night or the sound of whispers calling their names. Though these experiences rarely result in direct harm, they create an environment of persistent unease, leaving residents on edge and hyper-aware of every creak, shuffle, or gust of cold air. The architecture of Silver Ridge seems to amplify these experiences. Narrow hallways, stairwells with echoing steps, and darkened corners create spaces where sound and movement are distorted. Windows and reflective surfaces sometimes catch glimpses of figures that are not there, while the building's quietness by day makes nighttime disturbances all the more pronounced. Many tenants have noted that areas such as stairwells and long hallways are hotspots for activity, locations where whispers, footsteps, or cold drafts appear repeatedly. Some theorists suggest that these occurrences may be tied to the residual energy of the land or past occupants, lingering as a subtle but perceptible presence that interacts with the living. Despite the unsettling activity, some residents learn to coexist with the phenomena. Many focus on routines, choosing to ignore the whispers or shadows, while others leave the apartment entirely, unable to tolerate the persistent sense of being observed. Paranormal enthusiasts have visited Silver Ridge to document the activity, noting patterns that suggest some events are cyclical, recurring at certain times or under specific conditions. These investigations, though inconclusive, reinforce the idea that Silver Ridge is more than just an ordinary residential complex. Ultimately, Silver Ridge Apartments is a place where quiet by day is a deceptive calm, and nighttime reveals the building's hidden presence. The whispering voices, pacing footsteps, and cold drafts combine to create an atmosphere thick with unseen observation. A persistent reminder that the apartment complex is not entirely empty. Residents walk through hallways with heightened awareness, each creak of the stairs or flicker of the lights serving as a subtle acknowledgement that something lingers just beyond perception. The building becomes a space where the ordinary and the supernatural intertwine, and each night brings the possibility of encountering the unexplainable. Life at Silver Ridge is a constant negotiation with the unknown. For tenants, the presence is never violent, yet it is impossible to ignore. Every shadow, every gust of cold air, every fragment of a whispered warning is a reminder that the building is alive with memories and energy, quietly watching, pacing, and whispering, waiting to see who will stay and who will heed the subtle, haunting invitation to leave. High Desert Towers, standing tall against the Las Vegas skyline, presents itself as a modern residential complex, but its reputation among locals is anything but ordinary. The building's sleek exterior and towering presence hide a history and atmosphere that many residents find deeply unsettling. Ever since it opened, the apartments have been associated with constant paranormal activity, leaving tenants uneasy and, in some cases, fleeing after only a short stay. Reports from those who live there describe experiences that range from subtle disturbances to encounters so vivid they seem to defy explanation. One of the most common phenomena involves doors. Tenants frequently report doors slamming shut on their own, often with no wind or apparent cause. Some doors swing open suddenly, while others lock or unlock without explanation. These incidents are not limited to exterior entrances. Interior doors, closets, and even bathroom doors are affected, giving residents the unnerving feeling that unseen hands are manipulating the environment. Many describe the experience as aggressive or purposeful, as if the building itself is reacting to their presence. A few residents have reported repeated incidents in the same locations, suggesting that certain areas may serve as hotspots for activity. Areas where the energy feels strongest and most insistent. Lights flickering throughout high desert towers is another frequent occurrence. Tenants describe bulbs dimming or brightening without cause, ceiling fans turning on or off, and even electronic devices activating independently. The flickering often coincides with other phenomena, such as doors moving, unexplained noises, or the sudden appearance of shadowed figures. Some residents report that the lights react to their movements, as if aware of their presence, creating a sensation of being watched and manipulated simultaneously. Others describe rooms bathed in alternating light and shadow, highlighting the building's uncanny ability to play with perception and create moments of fear and confusion. Shadowy figures are among the most unsettling experiences reported at high desert towers. Residents have described seeing fleeting glimpses of men and women dressed in old-fashioned attire, walking silently along hallways or standing at the edge of rooms. Some figures appear to glance at tenants briefly before fading, leaving behind an eerie impression of observation. Others seem to pace, replaying routines from another era, as if caught in a loop that transcends time. One tenant, a young woman named Clara, recounted seeing a man in a vintage suit standing by the window of her apartment late at night. When she approached, he vanished, but the air remained heavy and cold, leaving Clara shaken for the rest of the evening. Many residents also report experiencing an overwhelming sense of pressure within the building, a feeling of confinement that seems almost physical. The walls appear to close in, the air becomes thick, and the space feels smaller than it should. This sensation often accompanies other phenomena, such as flickering lights or sudden cold drafts, amplifying the sense of unease. Some tenants have described it as a warning, an invisible force urging them to leave. A few have reported an irresistible compulsion to exit their apartments at night, unable to ignore the growing tension. In several cases, residents left the building permanently, citing the oppressive atmosphere as the primary reason. High desert towers architecture may play a role in amplifying the paranormal activity. The building's tall, narrow hallways, high ceilings, and reflective surfaces create conditions in which sound and shadow behave unpredictably. Footsteps echo unnaturally, faint whispers seem to come from multiple directions at once, and shadows appear to stretch or move independently of their sources. Areas such as stairwells, corridors near elevators, and apartment corners are frequently noted as hotspots for disturbances, where multiple tenants have reported similar experiences over time. These recurring locations suggest that the building may retain residual energy, concentrating paranormal activity in specific zones. Historical research into the site reveals a past that may explain the unusual occurrences. Though High Desert Towers itself is modern, it was constructed near a location that previously hosted transient housing, old commercial buildings, and instances of unexplained tragedy. The stories include sudden deaths, disputes, and other emotionally charged events that may have left lingering energy imprints. Some paranormal theorists suggest that the constant activity reported by tenants could be residual energy replaying patterns of the past, manifesting as sounds, movements, and visual phenomena. Others speculate that the building may have attracted attention from forces sensitive to human emotion, amplifying sensations of observation and pressure. Despite the unsettling occurrences, Some residents learn to coexist with the building's activity. They report adapting to the flickering lights, avoiding certain areas at night, and understanding that the phenomena do not appear to be violent. Some even find a strange comfort in knowing the building is alive in its own way, a presence that constantly interacts with those who live within it. Others, however, are less fortunate, leaving after only a few weeks or months, unable to endure the sense of being watched, the oppressive pressure, or the repeated visual disturbances. Visitors to high desert towers often notice a subtle tension upon entering. The air feels heavier, and sounds echo in ways that suggest unseen movement. Some report catching glimpses of figures out of the corner of their eye or sensing a presence in empty rooms. Even those who are skeptical cannot ignore the pervasive feeling that the building itself holds memories, emotions, and entities that refuse to remain unseen. Ultimately, high desert towers is more than just an apartment complex. It is a place where the boundaries between the living and unseen overlapped. The slamming doors, flickering lights, shadowed figures, and oppressive sensations combine to create an environment that is both unnerving and compelling. For tenants, daily life is a negotiation with forces beyond comprehension, and every room, hallway, and staircase carries the potential for a brush with the extraordinary. The building stands as a testament to the lingering power of history, emotion, and energy, and for those who live there, every night is a reminder that some presences refuse to be ignored. The Mirage Residences, nestled in the bustling heart of Las Vegas, presents itself as a modern, luxurious apartment complex with sleek glass facades and sweeping views of the Strip. By day, it exudes elegance and comfort, drawing in tenants who are attracted to its amenities and central location. Yet beneath the polished appearance lies a reputation steeped in mystery and fear. Over the years, stories have circulated about unexplained phenomena, mysterious vanishings, and encounters with entities that seem to linger long after their initial appearance. For residents, the beauty of the Mirage is often overshadowed by an unsettling feeling that they are never truly alone. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves the whispers. Tenants have described hearing soft voices calling for help, pleading from spaces that appear empty. The whispers are faint, almost imperceptible at first, carrying a tone of desperation that makes the skin crawl. Some report hearing fragmented sentences, "Please, don't leave me," or "Help, I can't find my way," always coming from the corners of hallways, just beyond the edge of the apartment door. Many try to rationalize the sounds, attributing them to air vents, distant conversations, or imagination. Yet the consistency of these reports, and the fact that multiple tenants hear them independently, suggests something beyond ordinary explanation. The whispers are often reported late at night, when the building is silent, and the sounds seem to echo unnaturally, sometimes moving from room to room as though following the listener. Shadowed figures are another common occurrence at the Mirage Residences. Unlike the fleeting shadows seen in ordinary buildings, these figures often appear only in reflective surfaces, such as mirrors or glass windows. Tenants describe catching glimpses of human shapes standing silently behind them, vanishing when they turn to look directly. The figures vary in appearance. Some are vague silhouettes, others appear fully formed in clothing from decades past, as though trapped between time periods. Many residents report that these reflections seem aware of their presence, tilting heads or adjusting stances, observing without ever making a sound. One tenant noted that in the mirrored surface of her bathroom cabinet, she saw a man who had been standing there for days, always in the same position, never moving, but always watching. The experience left her unnerved, and she eventually moved out abruptly, unable to endure the constant sense of surveillance. The history of the building's site contributes to the eerie atmosphere. Over the years, multiple tenants have vanished under mysterious circumstances. Some left abruptly, citing sudden personal crises, while others were never heard from again. These disappearances are often intertwined with tales of strange noises and visual phenomena, giving the impression that the building retains echoes of those who have passed or vanished within its walls. Residents speculate that the residual energy of these past occupants manifests in whispers, shadows, and other unexplained occurrences. Paranormal researchers suggest that the combination of human emotion, trauma, and the building's modern architecture could amplify this energy, allowing it to interact with the living in ways that are subtle but profoundly disturbing. One tenant, a man named Daniel, recounted a particularly unnerving experience. He had moved into a unit on an upper floor and was awakened one night by the faint sound of a voice calling his name. Following the sound, he found the hallway empty. Yet the echo persisted, growing louder as he stepped toward the living room. When he looked into the mirrored wall of the corridor, he saw a figure standing behind him, a shadowy woman in vintage attire, her face partially obscured but unmistakably watching. Daniel described feeling a pressure in the room, as if the air itself had thickened, and an almost magnetic pull urging him away from the apartment. He left the unit that night and did not return for several days, shaken by the intensity of the encounter. Other residents have shared stories that reinforce the building's haunted reputation. A young couple reported seeing a dark figure standing silently near the elevator doors for hours, disappearing only when the lights were turned on. Another tenant described hearing footsteps pacing outside her door for nights in a row, each step measured and deliberate, as if marking time for some unseen ritual. Children in the complex have spoken of whispers calling their names, shadows stretching toward them, or objects slightly moved when they were not looking. These experiences, while not physically harmful, create a pervasive sense of unease, leaving residents hyper-aware of every creak, flicker, and draft within the building. The architecture of the Mirage residences seems to amplify these occurrences. Its mirrored surfaces, high ceilings, and long hallways create spaces where reflections, light, and sound behave unpredictably. Shadows can linger unnaturally, and faint noises carry in ways that make them seem closer or more urgent than they actually are. Certain areas of the building, such as stairwells, long corridors, and mirrored bathrooms, have been repeatedly identified as hotspots for activity, suggesting that the structure itself may be holding or concentrating residual energy from past events. Despite the unsettling activity, some tenants learn to coexist with the phenomena. They develop routines that help them navigate the building at night, keep lights on, or avoid areas where shadows are most frequently seen. A few have taken to documenting occurrences, photographing reflections, recording sounds, and sharing experiences with neighbors. Others, however, cannot endure the presence, leaving abruptly after brief stints, citing the constant feeling of being watched and the oppressive weight of the building's history as reasons for their departure. Ultimately, the Mirage Residences is a place where beauty and unease coexist. The soft whispers, shadowed figures, and lingering sense of vanished tenants create an atmosphere where the past continually intrudes upon the present. Residents experience life in a space where the ordinary and the extraordinary overlap, and every reflection, every whisper, every sudden chill serves as a reminder that some presences refuse to remain hidden. The building stands as a testament to the weight of memory and mystery, a place where even the most modern apartment cannot escape the echoes of lives that were once part of it, and perhaps are still watching. Desert Haven, located in the heart of Henderson, stands out as a modern apartment complex with sleek architecture, clean lines, and spacious units. From the outside, it looks like any contemporary residence, a perfect blend of comfort and convenience, offering easy access to shopping, schools, and public transport. Yet for those who live within its walls, Desert Haven is far from ordinary. Despite its pristine appearance, the building carries a dark and persistent reputation, and its haunting phenomena have left many residents unnerved, frightened, or compelled to leave. Among the haunted apartments of Nevada, Desert Haven is regarded as the most disturbing, a place where the modern merges with the inexplicable in ways that defy reason. Residents' experiences often begin subtly. Some first notice cold spots that appear in the middle of otherwise warm rooms, lingering in specific corners or along hallways. Others report faint whispers calling their names, soft enough to be mistaken for imagination, yet unmistakably real to those who hear them. The voices often come from empty rooms, stairwells, or even behind closed doors, urging attention or issuing fragmented warnings. One tenant described waking in the early hours to a whispered warning that made her freeze. "Don't move. Stay quiet." When she turned on the light, the apartment was empty. Yet, the oppressive sensation of being observed lingered long into the morning. Perhaps the most unnerving encounters involve the sensation of touch. Tenants report waking to the feeling of cold hands brushing against their skin, often on arms, shoulders, or feet, with no visible cause. Some describe a sense of pressure on their bodies, as if someone is leaning or sitting at the foot of the bed. Many residents note that the sensation is accompanied by an overwhelming awareness that they are not alone, even in a locked apartment. It is subtle yet persistent, a presence that refuses to be ignored. For those who have experienced it repeatedly, the physical sensations alone are enough to make nights unbearable. Whispers are a recurring and chilling phenomenon at Desert Haven. Tenants describe hearing their names called, soft and deliberate, often followed by fragmented phrases like "leave now," "don't look," or "watch me." The whispers are rarely loud enough to startle, but carry a weight that penetrates the mind, a subtle insistence that something is being communicated. Some tenants have tried to respond, speaking aloud, asking who is present, but the whispers rarely answer directly. Instead, the voices grow fainter or shift in tone, leaving the listener with an unsettling feeling of partial communication, as if the presence is aware but chooses not to reveal itself fully. Several residents have had visual encounters that are just as disturbing. Shadowed figures appear at the edges of rooms, sometimes partially translucent, sometimes completely dark, lingering for seconds that feel like minutes. Some are described as humanoid but indistinct, features blurred or obscured, while others appear more defined, resembling ordinary people in modern or old-fashioned clothing. One tenant reported seeing a dark figure sitting silently at the foot of her bed, its form motionless, yet undeniably watching. The experience left her frozen with fear, and she left the apartment the next morning, unable to reconcile the sight with reality. Despite the modern construction and apparent luxury, Desert Haven seems to amplify these phenomena rather than diminish them. Its high ceilings, reflective surfaces, and long corridors create spaces where shadows stretch and light behaves unpredictably. Hallways echo even the slightest sound, and stairwells carry faint noises across multiple floors. Windows sometimes catch reflections of figures that vanish when directly observed, making it difficult for tenants to distinguish reality from the unseen. Some theorists suggest that the building's modern materials and design inadvertently enhance residual energy, allowing past and present to intersect in ways that are palpable and unnerving. Many tenants report that certain units are particularly active. Apartments on higher floors, near stairwells, or adjacent to long, narrow hallways are often the most disturbed. Some units remain empty, despite the complex's prime location and otherwise attractive amenities. The reputation of Desert Haven has spread, and while some prospective tenants dismiss it as rumor, those who have experienced the disturbances firsthand understand why certain apartments remain vacant. The consistent rule, shared among residents, is simple but crucial. Never ignore the whispers. Those who do often find themselves subject to intensified phenomenal, outer voices, stronger sensations of presence, or even objects moving slightly in response to unseen activity. One long-term resident, a man named Eric, shared his experience of living in Desert Haven. He described nights filled with subtle but persistent disturbances, whispers calling his name as he moved through the apartment, cold drafts brushing past him in patterns that followed his movements, and shadows that seemed to linger longer than the physical world would allow. On one occasion, he woke to find the unmistakable feeling of someone sitting at the foot of his bed. Though he saw no figure, the weight and presence were undeniable, pressing upon him in a way that made it impossible to sleep. Eric eventually adapted by keeping lights on and speaking aloud when he sensed a presence, but he acknowledged that the experience never fully disappeared. Other tenants echo these experiences. A young woman described waking to whispers urging her to leave, only for the bedroom door to creak open slowly on its own. Another reported seeing a figure in the hallway mirror, standing silently before vanishing when approached. Many residents note that while the phenomena are never physically violent, the psychological impact is profound, creating fear, unease, and a constant awareness that the building itself is active in ways that cannot be explained. Ultimately, Desert Haven is more than just a modern apartment complex. It is a space where the ordinary and the paranormal coexist in uneasy proximity. The whispers, cold touches, and shadowed figures create an environment that is deeply unsettling, yet impossible to fully ignore. Tenants navigate life with heightened awareness, learning to respect the presence within the walls, understanding that the subtle signals, the brush of a hand, the soft call of a voice, the weight at the foot of the bed are not mere imagination. For those who have stayed, the experience is unforgettable, a constant reminder that some presences refuse to be dismissed. Desert Haven remains a place where the modern and the disturbing collide, and where the unspoken rule is clear. Never ignore the whispers. Haunted apartments aren't just stories. They're spaces where the past refuses to rest, where walls remember sorrow, anger, and despair. In Nevada, the desert sun may shine, and the neon may dazzle, but inside these haunted units, darkness never sleeps. So, if you ever find yourself searching for a place to live in Nevada, remember this: some doors are meant to stay closed. Some apartments are already occupied by the lost. Thank you, brave listener, for walking these haunted halls with me tonight. If these stories chilled your soul, light a candle, subscribe, and join me again as we explore more places where the living and the dead collide. Because in the haunted corners of Nevada, the shadows never truly leave.